There's this thing about being an INFJ. You see the world not just for what it is, but for what it could be. It's like walking around with 3D glasses on. Everything has layers, dimensions, and depth. But this gift, this ability to sense emotions and read people like open books, often feels like both a blessing and a curse, especially when you cross paths with the wrong people. The ones who take your kindness for granted, who see your empathy as a tool to manipulate. I know because I've been there more times than I'd like to admit. Let me take you back to one of the most defining relationships of my life. It was with someone I now realize was a textbook narcissist. At first, it was intoxicating. They were charming, attentive, and seemed to genuinely value my opinions. For an INFJ like me, who rarely feels understood, it was a dream come true. But slowly I began to notice the cracks. Their praise turned into backhanded compliments. Their interest in my thoughts shifted to endless monologues about themselves, and their affections started to feel like a leash tightening around my neck. I stayed longer than I should have, thinking I could help them change, heal their wounds, or at least understand why they acted the way they did. But all it did was drain me, leaving me a shell of the person I once was. It wasn't until I hit rock bottom that I realized something crucial. Not everyone deserves your empathy, no matter how much you want to save them. This story is just one of many, but it taught me an invaluable lesson about navigating relationships as an INFJ. Whether it's a narcissistic partner, an emotionally volatile friend, or even a well-meaning but overbearing colleague, every personality type brings its own set of challenges and opportunities. Over the years, I've learned how to spot red flags, protect my energy, and build connections that uplift rather than drain me. In this journey, I've also found incredible solace in relationships with other intuitive types, like the ENFJ who taught me the beauty of shared ideals, or the INTJ who challenged me to embrace logic without losing my heart. Each personality type brings something unique to the table, and understanding these dynamics has not only helped me thrive, but also deepened my appreciation for the intricate dance of human connection. If you've ever felt like your empathy is both your greatest strength and your Achilles heel, you're not alone. This is the story of what it's like to be an INFJ in a world that often feels overwhelming, how we connect, how we struggle, and how we grow through our relationships with people who are both like us and utterly different. Section 1. The allure and danger of narcissists. There's something almost magnetic about narcissists, isn't there? At least that's how it felt to me the first time I encountered one. As an INFJ, I was drawn to their charisma like a moth to a flame. They were confident, articulate, and seemed to have this uncanny ability to make me feel like the most important person in the room. Looking back, it's easy to see why narcissists are often attracted to INFJs. We're empathetic to a fault. Natural healers who see potential in everyone. Narcissists, they thrive on admiration and validation. It's a perfect storm, one that can leave you emotionally wrecked if you don't recognize the signs early enough. The beginning of the spiral. Take James, for example. When we met, he was the life of every room. He had this infectious energy, a way of making people laugh and feel special. He noticed me in a way that few people ever had. "You're so insightful," he said during one of our first conversations. "It's like you see through all the noise." For an INFJ who often feels misunderstood, hearing that was like water to a parched soul. For the first few months, it was exhilarating. He seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts, my dreams, my quirks. But slowly the cracks started to show. His compliments began to feel performative, almost like a script he repeated for effect. Conversations became less about mutual sharing and more about him dominating the spotlight. If I brought up something that mattered to me, he'd redirect it back to himself or downplay its importance. The emotional roller coaster. The most confusing part? The highs were so high and the lows were devastating. On good days, he'd shower me with affection, praise, and promises of a future together. On bad days, he'd criticize me for being too sensitive, or accuse me of not doing enough to support him. I remember one fight vividly. I had spent hours preparing a surprise for his birthday, a handwritten letter, a playlist of songs that reminded me of him, and his favorite dessert. Instead of gratitude, he dismissed it as too much. "Why do you always have to be so intense?" he said, rolling his eyes. I was crushed. Why INFJs stay longer than they should. Here's the thing about INFJs. We want to understand. We crave meaning in our relationships, even when they hurt us. I told myself James acted this way because he was wounded, that if I could just love him enough, he'd heal. I ignored my gut feelings, the ones screaming that his love was conditional, his affections transactional. It wasn't until a friend pointed out the cycle, love bombing, devaluation, discard, that I realized I was trapped in a classic narcissistic dynamic. But breaking free wasn't easy. Narcissists have a way of making you doubt yourself, twisting your words, and convincing you that the problem lies with you, not them. Lessons learned. When I finally ended things, I felt like I'd been hit by an emotional hurricane. It took months to rebuild my sense of self, to trust my intuition again. But that relationship taught me some of the most valuable lessons of my life. Listen to your gut. INFJs are deeply intuitive, and when something feels off, it usually is. Set boundaries early. Narcissists will push and push until you feel like you're losing yourself. Protect your energy fiercely. Empathy has limits. Not everyone deserves your emotional investment, especially if they use it as a weapon against you. By the time I emerged from that relationship, I was more cautious, but also more aware. I learned to spot the signs of narcissistic behavior, the exaggerated sense of self-importance, the inability to take accountability, the pattern of gaslighting. Most importantly, I learned to prioritize my own well-being over the illusion of fixing someone else. Section 2. Friendships with ENFJs. A mirror to the soul. If there's one personality type that feels like a safe harbor for INFJs, it's the ENFJ. They're often called the protagonists, and for good reason. ENFJs are natural leaders with an uncanny ability to make others feel seen, heard, and valued. For an INFJ whose inner world is rich but often misunderstood, finding an ENFJ friend can feel like discovering a mirror to your soul. I first met Sarah, an ENFJ, during a work retreat. From the moment she walked into the room, she exuded warmth and positivity. She had this magnetic energy, the kind that instantly draws people in. But what struck me the most was her attentiveness. Unlike most people who listen just to respond, Sarah listened to understand, the instant connection. Our friendship began with a simple conversation about a book we both loved. What started as small talk quickly deepened into a discussion about life, purpose, and the complexity of human emotions. I remember thinking, finally, someone who gets it. ENFJs have this rare ability to create a space where you feel safe to open up. For an INFJ like me, who often keeps feelings bottled up for fear of being judged, this was transformative. With Sarah, I didn't have to explain why I cared so deeply about certain things or why I sometimes needed time to recharge. She just understood the beauty of shared values. One of the most beautiful aspects of an INFJ-ENFJ friendship is the shared commitment to making the world a better place. Both types are idealistic, driven by a desire to help others and create meaningful change. This shared mission can lead to incredible collaborations. Sarah and I ended up volunteering together at a local shelter, a project she had spearheaded. Watching her interact with people, offering encouragement, organizing resources, and lifting everyone's spirits was inspiring. ENFJs have a way of channeling their empathy into action, and that's something INFJs deeply admire. Challenges in the dynamic. Of course, no friendship is without its challenges. While ENFJs are incredibly supportive, their tendency to take on too much can sometimes clash with an INFJ's need for introspection and solitude. There were times when Sarah's relentless energy left me feeling overwhelmed. I remember one weekend when she invited me to 3 different events: a fundraiser, a networking dinner, and a late-night karaoke session. I went along, not wanting to disappoint her, but by the end of the night, I was emotionally drained. When I finally told her I needed more downtime, she was surprisingly understanding. This taught me an important lesson. ENFJs are incredibly empathetic, but they're not mind readers. As an INFJ, it's crucial to communicate your needs, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. What INFJs can learn from ENFJs. Being friends with an ENFJ can teach INFJs a lot about balance. ENFJs show us the power of being outwardly expressive, of using our empathy not just to understand, but to inspire and lead. They remind us that our insights are valuable, not just in private reflections, but in the real world. Sarah often encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone. Whether it was speaking up in meetings or sharing my writing with a larger audience, she pushed me in ways that felt scary but ultimately rewarding. Her belief in me helped me believe in myself. What ENFJs appreciate about INFJs. On the flip side, ENFJs deeply value the depth and authenticity that INFJs bring to the table. They appreciate our ability to see the bigger picture, to notice the nuances that others might miss. In many ways, INFJs help ENFJs slow down and reflect, grounding them when their enthusiasm threatens to stretch them too thin. Sarah once told me, "You're like my emotional compass. Whenever I feel lost or unsure, talking to you helps me find clarity." Hearing that made me realize how much we complement each other, building a lasting friendship. The key to a thriving INFJ-ENFJ friendship lies in balance. ENFJs thrive on connection and activity, while INFJs need introspection and quiet. Respecting these differences is crucial. Over time, Sarah and I found our rhythm. She learned to give me space when I needed it, and I learned to lean into her energy when I felt stuck. Together, we created a friendship that was both empowering and restorative. A lifelong bond. Years later, Sarah and I are still close. Whenever life feels overwhelming, she's the first person I call. And whenever she needs someone to talk her through a tough decision, she knows she can count on me. Our friendship has taught me that while INFJs often feel like outsiders in a noisy world, the right people, like ENFJs, can make us feel not just understood, but celebrated. Section 3, Professional Struggles with ESTJs, a Clash of Worlds. Working with ESTJs as an INFJ feels like navigating two completely different worlds. While INFJs thrive on intuition, emotional depth, and a holistic approach to problem solving, ESTJs are all about efficiency, practicality, and sticking to tried and true methods. These differences can make collaboration challenging, especially in high-stakes professional environments. I remember my first experience working under an ESTJ boss. His name was Mark, and he was a textbook definition of the executive personality type: decisive, organized, and laser-focused on results. At first, I admired his ability to take charge and maintain structure in a chaotic workplace, but it didn't take long for our differences to surface. The clash begins. It started small, minor disagreements about how to approach projects. While I wanted to take time to brainstorm creative, long-term solutions, Mark was all about immediate action. "We don't have time for overthinking," he'd say, cutting off my suggestions. To him, my tendency to consider multiple perspectives felt like indecision, while his black and white thinking often felt dismissive to me. The real tension came during a team meeting. We were tasked with revamping a client's marketing strategy, and I suggested incorporating feedback from previous campaigns to create something more tailored and impactful. Mark shot down the idea almost instantly. "We've done it this way for years, and it works. Stick to the plan." His words stung, not because he disagreed, but because he didn't seem open to even considering another perspective. For an INFJ whose ideas are often deeply personal and carefully thought out, this kind of dismissal can feel like a personal attack. Why INFJs struggle with ESTJs. The core of the conflict lies in how these two types process information and make decisions. INFJs prioritize meaning and potential. We see possibilities and value innovation, even if it takes more time. ESTJs value efficiency and proven methods. They're focused on what works now, not what might work in the future. This fundamental difference can make INFJs feel stifled and undervalued in ESTJ-dominated environments. For their part, ESTJs might see INFJs as overly sensitive, impractical, or unwilling to commit to a course of action, finding common ground. Despite these challenges, I learned to navigate my dynamic with Mark by focusing on communication and compromise. Here's what worked for me. 1. Frame ideas in practical terms. Instead of pitching a concept as creative or intuitive, I started presenting it with concrete benefits and measurable outcomes. For example, instead of saying, "This approach feels more aligned with the client's vision," I'd say, "This method could increase engagement by 20% based on past data." 2. respect their need for structure. ESTJs thrive on predictability and order, so I made an effort to stick to deadlines and present my ideas within their preferred framework. This helped build trust and showed that I respected their leadership style. 3. Set boundaries around feedback. Early on, I let Mark's blunt critiques chip away at my confidence, but I realized his comments weren't personal. They were just his way of pushing for results. Once I stopped internalizing his feedback, I found it easier to focus on improving my work without second-guessing myself. What INFJs can learn from ESTJs. Despite our differences, working with Mark taught me valuable lessons about professionalism and resilience. Don't take everything personally. ESTJs are direct, but their intent is usually about efficiency, not malice. Embrace structure. While I initially resisted Mark's rigid processes, I eventually realized that a clear framework can free up mental energy for creative thinking. Stand your ground. Just because ESTJs are decisive doesn't mean their way is always the best way. Learning to confidently assert my ideas, with evidence to back them up, helped me earn Mark's respect. Humor in the chaos. Not every interaction with ESTJs is a battle of wills. Over time, Mark and I developed a mutual appreciation for each other's quirks. I once joked that his to-do lists were longer than War and Peace, and he fired back with, "At least I actually finished them." Moments like these reminded me that our differences didn't have to be divisive. They could also be a source of growth and camaraderie. Building bridges. The turning point in my relationship with Mark came during a particularly stressful quarter. Our team was stretched thin and tensions were running high. One day, he pulled me aside after a meeting and said, "I know I can come across as intense, but I trust your instincts even if I don't always say it." That small acknowledgement meant the world to me. It showed that even the most pragmatic ESTJ can recognize and value the unique contributions of an INFJ. Conclusion: two sides of the same coin. By the end of my time working with Mark, I realized that our differences weren't just challenges. They were opportunities for growth. His practicality balanced my idealism, while my vision broadened his perspective. Together, we achieved results that neither of us could have accomplished alone. For INFJs navigating professional relationships with ESTJs, the key is to find balance. Respect their need for structure while staying true to your intuitive strengths. When both sides meet in the middle, the result can be a partnership that's not just effective, but transformative. Section 4. Emotional depth with INTJs, kindred spirits. When an INFJ and an INTJ connect, it feels like meeting a fellow traveler who speaks your language, albeit with a slightly different accent. While INFJs are guided by intuition and emotion, INTJs rely on logic and strategy. Yet beneath their analytical exterior lies a depth that, when uncovered, resonates deeply with the INFJ's soul. I first experienced this dynamic with Alex, an INTJ colleague I worked closely with on a year-long project. At first glance, Alex came across as distant, even cold. He rarely participated in small talk, preferring to focus on work tasks with laser precision. But something about his quiet intensity intrigued me, the initial dance of intuition and logic. The first time we truly connected was during a brainstorming session. While others threw out half-formed ideas, Alex stayed silent, taking notes and observing. When he finally spoke, his insight was sharp and incisive, cutting straight to the core of the issue. "You think in layers," I told him after the meeting. He raised an eyebrow but didn't reply. Later, he admitted, "I don't usually feel the need to explain myself, but with you, I feel like you already get it." For an INFJ, hearing those words was like finding a puzzle piece you didn't realize was missing. INTJs often feel misunderstood, much like INFJs, but for entirely different reasons. Where INFJs are driven by emotion, INTJs rely on logic. Both approaches often isolating them in a world that doesn't quite see things their way. The beauty of shared introspection. What sets the INFJ-INTJ connection apart is their shared love of introspection. While Alex and I approach problems differently, we both value deep, meaningful conversations. Over time, our casual chats evolved into philosophical discussions about life, purpose, and the intricacies of human behavior. One evening, after a particularly grueling workday, Alex surprised me by asking, "Why do you care so much about how others feel?" It wasn't a critique, it was genuine curiosity. I explained how I couldn't help but sense the emotions of others, how their unspoken struggles often felt like my own. He nodded, pausing thoughtfully before replying, "I don't feel that, but I see it. It's like watching a storm from a distance, powerful, but not something I can step into." That exchange stuck with me. It highlighted the fundamental difference between us. Where I felt emotions viscerally, Alex analyzed them with detached curiosity. Yet instead of creating a divide, this contrast deepened our understanding of each other. Challenges and vulnerability. Of course, the INFJ-INTJ relationship isn't without its challenges. INTJs tend to guard their emotions fiercely, often perceiving vulnerability as a weakness. This can frustrate INFJs who crave emotional openness in their closest relationships. There were moments with Alex where I felt like I was hitting a wall. After months of working together, I still didn't know much about his personal life. Every time I tried to dig deeper, he'd deflect or give a brief, surface-level response. One day, I confronted him about it. "You know almost everything about me, but I barely know you," I said. He hesitated before replying, "It's not that I don't want to share. It's just hard. I don't process emotions the way you do, and I'm not sure how to put them into words." That moment taught me an important lesson about INTJs. Their silence isn't indifference, it's caution. They open up slowly, but when they do, it's deeply meaningful. What INFJs can learn from INTJs. Being close to an INTJ can teach INFJs valuable lessons about boundaries, self-reliance, and the power of logic. Patience is key. INTJs take their time to open up, and rushing them often backfires. Balance emotion with strategy. While INFJs lead with their hearts, INTJs remind us to ground our decisions in practicality. Respect their independence. INTJs value autonomy and may withdraw if they feel their space is being encroached upon. What INTJs appreciate about INFJs. On the flip side, INTJs deeply value the emotional insight and authenticity that INFJs bring to their lives. For someone like Alex, who often struggled to navigate emotional landscapes, having an INFJ friend was like gaining a translator for feelings he couldn't fully articulate. "You make me think about things I'd usually ignore," he once admitted. "It's annoying, but also necessary." Hearing that was a reminder of how much INFJs can offer to INTJs: a safe space for vulnerability, a deeper understanding of emotions, and a perspective that balances their logical approach. A partnership built on trust. Over the course of our project, Alex and I developed a partnership that was both productive and profoundly enriching. While I leaned on his strategic mind for structure and clarity, he turned to me for creative input and emotional nuance. By the time the project ended, we had not only achieved our professional goals, but also built a friendship that felt rare and irreplaceable. Conclusion: a meeting of minds and hearts. The INFJ-INTJ relationship is a beautiful paradox, a meeting of emotion and logic, intuition and analysis. While it requires effort to navigate their differences, the result is a connection that's both intellectually stimulating and emotionally fulfilling. For INFJs, INTJs offer a reminder that emotions don't always need to be felt to be understood. And for INTJs, INFJs provide a gateway to a world of emotional depth that's as challenging as it is rewarding. Together, they create a partnership that's as complex as it is harmonious. With Section 5, Protecting Your Energy, the INFJ Survival Guide. If there's one thing every INFJ eventually learns, it's that their energy is a precious, finite resource. With a natural inclination to help others, we often pour ourselves into relationships, projects, and causes, sometimes to the point of emotional exhaustion. For INFJs, protecting our energy isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity for thriving in a world that often feels overwhelming. I learned this the hard way. A few years ago, I found myself juggling a demanding job, a draining friendship, and family responsibilities, all while trying to stay true to my dreams and values. I was constantly running on empty, and it wasn't until I reached the brink of burnout that I realized something had to change. Why INFJs are prone to burnout. INFJs are uniquely wired for empathy and connection. While this makes us incredible friends, partners, and confidants, it also makes us vulnerable to energy depletion. Here's why. 1. Emotional absorption. We absorb the feelings of those around us, often without realizing it. A single conversation with a stressed or upset person can leave us feeling drained. 2. Perfectionism. Our idealistic nature pushes us to give 110% in everything we do, whether it's a work project or a personal relationship. 3. Difficulty setting boundaries. Saying no doesn't come easily, especially when we feel someone needs us. Recognizing these patterns is the first step in breaking the cycle and reclaiming our energy. The importance of setting boundaries. One of the most transformative lessons I've learned is that boundaries aren't barriers. They're bridges to healthier relationships and a more balanced life. Setting boundaries allows us to give from a place of abundance rather than depletion. Here's how I've learned to set boundaries without feeling guilty. Be clear and direct. Instead of vague statements like, "I'm a little busy," I've started saying, "I'm not available for that right now, but I appreciate you asking." Prioritize your needs. It's okay to put yourself first. In fact, it's essential. If your well-being isn't intact, you can't show up fully for others. Practice saying no. This one took me years to master, but now I remind myself, every no to someone else is a yes to myself. One specific instance comes to mind. I had a friend, Lisa, who was going through a rough time. She would call me almost every night to vent, often for hours. While I wanted to support her, it reached a point where our conversations left me completely drained. One evening, I told her, "I care about you, but I also need to take care of myself. Can we set a time limit for our calls?" To my surprise, she was understanding. It was a small step, but it made a huge difference. Creating energy rituals. Another key to protecting your energy as an INFJ is cultivating rituals that recharge your emotional and mental reserves. These are the practices that ground you, helping you reconnect with your inner self amidst the chaos of daily life. Some of my favorite energy rituals include morning solitude, starting the day with quiet reflection, whether through journaling, meditation, or simply sipping coffee in silence. Nature walks. There's something incredibly restorative about being in nature. A walk in the park or by the water always helps me clear my mind. Creative expression. Whether it's writing, painting, or playing music, creativity allows me to process emotions in a way that feels freeing and cathartic. Digital detox. Spending time away from screens, especially social media, has been a game changer for my mental clarity. These rituals don't have to be elaborate. Even a few minutes of intentional self-care can help replenish your energy. Navigating toxic relationships. Unfortunately, not every relationship is supportive. As INFJs, we often find ourselves entangled with toxic personality types, narcissists, manipulators, and energy vampires who take without giving. One of the most eye-opening experiences of my life was recognizing that not everyone deserves access to my energy. This realization came during a relationship with someone who constantly criticized me, dismissed my feelings, and manipulated my empathy to serve their needs. Breaking free wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Here's how I managed it. Identify red flags. If someone consistently drains you, disregards your boundaries, or makes you feel small, it's time to reevaluate the relationship. Limit interactions. If cutting ties completely is impossible, for example, with a coworker or family member, create emotional distance by limiting your time and energy spent with them. Seek support. Confide in trusted friends or a therapist who can help you navigate the situation with clarity and confidence. Reconnecting with your purpose. One of the best ways for INFJs to protect their energy is by staying aligned with their purpose. When we focus on what truly matters to us, whether it's a passion project, a cause, or a meaningful relationship, it becomes easier to let go of distractions and drainers. During my burnout phase, I rediscovered my love for writing. Pouring my thoughts and feelings into words became a sanctuary for me, a way to process my experiences and reconnect with my inner self. It reminded me of who I was beyond the roles I played for others. Practical tips for energy protection. 1. Practice mindfulness. Check in with yourself regularly to assess your energy levels. Are you feeling drained or fulfilled? Adjust your activities accordingly. And so, 2. Embrace strategic selfishness. Give yourself permission to prioritize your needs without guilt. 3. Surround yourself with the right people. Seek out relationships that energize and uplift you. 4. Declutter your commitments. Let go of obligations that no longer align with your values or goals. Conclusion: thriving as an INFJ. Protecting your energy as an INFJ isn't about shutting people out. It's about creating space for what truly nourishes your soul. By setting boundaries, cultivating energy-boosting rituals, and aligning with your purpose, you can navigate life with resilience and clarity. Remember, your empathy is a gift, but it's also your responsibility to protect it. When you take care of yourself first, you're better equipped to share your light with the world. Section 6. The Empath and the Narcissist. A tale of opposites. There's a strange magnetism between empaths and narcissists, and INFJs often find themselves caught in this dynamic. The INFJ's deep empathy and desire to heal others can unwittingly make them prime targets for narcissists who are drawn to that warmth and emotional availability. But what starts as a seemingly intense, passionate connection can quickly devolve into a draining and toxic relationship. I know this because I've lived it. The alluring beginning. I met Adam at a friend's party. He was charming, charismatic, and had an uncanny ability to make you feel like the most important person in the room. When he turned his attention to me, I felt seen in a way I hadn't before. His words were filled with admiration, and he seemed genuinely captivated by my thoughts and dreams. At first, it felt magical. INFJs often crave deep connections, and Adam seemed to check all the boxes. He was attentive, articulate, and full of big, ambitious ideas. I mistook his charm for depth and his confidence for emotional security. Looking back, the signs were there from the beginning. His conversations often revolved around himself, and he had a way of subtly turning every compliment I gave him into a reason to highlight his accomplishments. But I ignored the red flags because I wanted to believe in the connection we seemed to share. The shift. The first cracks appeared a few months in. Adam's attention, which once felt like sunshine, became intermittent and conditional. He'd praise me one moment, only to criticize me the next. My sensitivity, which he initially adored, was now too much. "Why do you always overthink everything?" he'd say when I tried to discuss my feelings. His words stung, but I told myself he didn't mean to hurt me. INFJs often give people the benefit of the doubt, especially when we see potential in them. I found myself working harder and harder to regain the connection we once had. I bent over backward to meet his needs, thinking that if I could just do more or be better, things would go back to the way they were. Why INFJs are drawn to narcissists. The dynamic between INFJs and narcissists is often rooted in these contrasting traits, or INFJs see the potential in others. We're wired to look past flaws and focus on a person's inner goodness or potential. With narcissists, this means we often overlook toxic behavior in favor of their wounded inner self. Narcissists crave admiration. INFJs naturally give attention and validation, which feeds the narcissist's ego. INFJs want to heal. We're natural fixers, and narcissists often present themselves as deeply misunderstood or hurt, triggering our desire to help. Unfortunately, this combination often leads to a one-sided relationship where the INFJ gives endlessly while the narcissist takes without reciprocation, the emotional toll. Being in a relationship with a narcissist is like trying to fill a bottomless well. No matter how much love, patience, or effort you pour in, it's never enough. For me, the breaking point came during an argument where I finally stood up for myself. I told Adam I needed more consistency and support in the relationship. His response was cold and dismissive. "You're just too sensitive. Maybe this isn't working because you expect too much." His words cut deep, but they also snapped me out of the fog I'd been living in. For months, I'd been sacrificing my own needs and self-worth to sustain a relationship that was draining me. It was time to let go. Breaking free. Ending a relationship with a narcissist is never easy, especially for INFJs who value connection and find it hard to walk away from someone they care about. But breaking free is essential for reclaiming your energy and sense of self. Here's how I managed to move on. 1. Acknowledge the truth. The first step is recognizing the toxic dynamics of the relationship. I had to accept that no amount of love or effort on my part could change Adam's behavior. 2. Set firm boundaries. I stopped engaging with his attempts to draw me back in, whether through guilt trips or love bombing. This was incredibly difficult but necessary. 3. Seek support. Talking to trusted friends and a therapist helped me process my emotions and rebuild my confidence. 4. Focus on self-healing. I poured my energy into activities that brought me joy and fulfillment, from journaling to spending time in nature. What INFJs can learn. While the experience was painful, it also taught me valuable lessons about protecting my heart and recognizing healthy versus unhealthy relationships. Here's what I took away. Trust your intuition. INFJs have a strong gut instinct, but we often suppress it to avoid conflict or give someone the benefit of the doubt. If something feels off, trust yourself. You're not responsible for saving others. It's not your job to fix or heal someone, especially at the expense of your own well-being. Healthy love is reciprocal. True connection involves mutual respect, support, and effort. Anything less isn't worth your time. Finding strength in the experience. After breaking free from Adam, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. But over time, I realized the relationship had made me stronger. It taught me the importance of boundaries, the value of self-love, and the courage to walk away from what doesn't serve me. Humor and healing. There's a certain dark humor in looking back at the absurdity of some of Adam's behaviors. I remember one time he spent 20 minutes talking about his visionary ideas for a startup that never materialized, then brushed off my accomplishments like they were trivial. Now I can laugh at the irony of it all. It's a reminder that even painful experiences can hold moments of levity. Conclusion. Reclaiming your power. The INFJ narcissist dynamic may be a tale of opposites, but it's also a powerful lesson in self-worth and resilience. For INFJs, the key is to recognize your value and refuse to settle for relationships that drain rather than nurture you. Breaking free from a narcissist isn't just about ending a toxic relationship. It's about reclaiming your energy, your peace, and your sense of self. And in doing so, you pave the way for healthier, more fulfilling connections in the future. Section 7. Building fulfilling friendships. The INFJ's inner circle. As an INFJ, building genuine, fulfilling friendships can often feel like a journey through a desert in search of an oasis. We crave deep, meaningful connections, and anything less can leave us feeling unfulfilled or emotionally drained. But when we do find that rare bond, a friendship that nurtures and sustains us, it feels like finding a mirror in someone else, a place where we can both be our authentic selves. Over the years, I've learned that cultivating these kinds of friendships requires intentionality and patience. Not everyone will get the depth of who we are, and that's okay. What matters is creating a space where we can be seen, understood, and appreciated without the pressure of constantly performing or explaining ourselves. The need for emotional depth. INFJs are emotional beings at their core, and we need more than just surface-level conversations. We seek those rare friends with whom we can share our deepest thoughts and emotions without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. I've had friendships that were enjoyable in the moment, but once the conversation turned superficial, I felt disconnected and adrift. For instance, I once had a friend, Sarah, with whom I had a lot in common on paper. We both loved literature, had similar tastes in music, and enjoyed long talks about life's mysteries. But despite our shared interests, I often felt emotionally exhausted after spending time with her. Our conversations would inevitably revolve around trivial topics, or worse, she would monopolize the conversation, never giving me space to share my own thoughts. At first, I chalked it up to her being busy or distracted, but over time, I realized something deeper. Sarah wasn't capable of the kind of emotional depth I needed. It wasn't that she was a bad person, but her emotional world didn't seem to align with mine. I began to recognize that the friendships I needed weren't just about shared interests, but about mutual emotional connection and the ability to hold space for each other's vulnerability. The role of trust in INFJ friendships. Trust is the foundation of any meaningful relationship, but for INFJs, it's a crucial element that must be earned. We have a natural tendency to protect our hearts, and for good reason. Many INFJs have experienced betrayal or emotional hurt in the past. As a result, we don't easily let others in. But when we do trust someone, we give them access to our most sacred thoughts and feelings. I remember the first time I felt completely at ease with someone. It was my friend Evan, who I had known for a few years, but it wasn't until one rainy afternoon that our friendship truly deepened. We had been talking about our respective struggles with our careers and relationships when he paused and said, "I don't have all the answers, but I'm here for you. Whatever you need to talk about, I'm here." That was the moment I knew he was someone I could trust. Someone who didn't just listen to respond, but listen to understand. It was the kind of quiet, unwavering support that INFJs crave, and it allowed me to open up in a way I hadn't with anyone before. Your friendships with ENFJs, a natural synergy. If there's one personality type that consistently feels like a natural match for INFJs, it's ENFJs. These two types share an intuitive understanding of the world and often find themselves on the same wavelength, especially when it comes to emotional connection and helping others. My closest friendship today is with Anna, an ENFJ I met in college. From the very start, we clicked on a level that was almost eerie. We both shared a passion for social causes, an idealistic view of the world, and an unspoken understanding that we both needed emotional depth in our relationships. Anna has an incredible ability to read people, and she always knew when something was off with me, even if I hadn't said a word. There was one night during a difficult time in my life when I was avoiding her calls and trying to keep my struggles to myself. But she showed up at my door, not saying a word, just wrapping me in a hug. "I don't need you to talk right now," she said softly. "I just want to be here for you." It's this unspoken support, combined with Anna's natural leadership and warmth, that makes our friendship so fulfilling. As an ENFJ, she's naturally driven by a desire to connect with others and help them reach their potential, and our dynamic is built on a mutual understanding of emotional needs and the balance of giving and receiving. Friendships with INFPs. Shared idealism. INFPs, with their introspective and idealistic nature, also make excellent friends for INFJs. Both types seek authenticity and are often motivated by a desire to make the world a better place. I met Fiona, an INFP, at a volunteer event, and we instantly bonded over our shared love for literature and our mutual desire to help others. We spent hours discussing our favorite books, debating over characters and themes, and diving deep into conversations about meaning and purpose. What I appreciate most about Fiona is her ability to listen without judgment. She doesn't try to fix my problems or offer solutions. She simply listens and holds space for me to feel whatever I'm feeling. For an INFJ, this is a rare gift. Many people, myself included, are driven to solve problems. But Fiona's patience and understanding have taught me the value of simply being present with someone in their struggles. The challenges of INFJ friendships. While INFJs are capable of forming deep, meaningful connections, there are challenges that come with our tendency to give so much of ourselves. As we invest emotionally in our friendships, it's easy to lose sight of our own needs. We can become so focused on helping or supporting others that we neglect our own well-being. I learned this lesson during a period of intense personal stress when I found myself overwhelmed by the emotional weight of my friends' struggles. I loved them dearly, but I was constantly taking on their pain, carrying it alongside my own. It wasn't until I reached a breaking point that I realized I needed to set healthier boundaries. This isn't about shutting people out. It's about recognizing that, as an INFJ, your emotional capacity is limited. You can't pour from an empty cup. Setting boundaries with friends, while difficult, ensures that you have the emotional energy to support them without losing yourself in the process. Building a balanced inner circle. The key to cultivating fulfilling friendships as an INFJ is finding people who not only understand your emotional depth, but also give you the space to be yourself. These are the people who will celebrate your victories, support you through your struggles, and challenge you to grow without overwhelming you. One of the most important lessons I've learned is that quality matters far more than quantity when it comes to friendships. You don't need a large circle. You need a small, trusted group of individuals who make you feel seen, heard, and valued. Conclusion: the power of connection. As INFJs, we are wired for connection, but true connection requires trust, emotional depth, and mutual respect. By intentionally nurturing friendships with those who understand and appreciate our complexity, we create a supportive network that helps us thrive. These relationships not only enrich our lives, but also provide the foundation for our growth and healing. Friendships with the right people offer us the freedom to be our authentic selves, knowing that we are loved for exactly who we are. And in these relationships, we find not just companionship, but a sense of belonging that nourishes our soul. Section 8. Navigating professional challenges. NFJs in the workplace. As an INFJ, navigating the professional world often feels like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. On one hand, we possess a deep sense of purpose, an innate desire to make a positive impact, and an empathetic understanding of others. On the other hand, the corporate world, often driven by efficiency, competition, and bottom lines, can feel like a place where our intuitive, introspective nature doesn't always align. I've worked in a variety of environments over the years, and the journey has been full of lessons, challenges, and self-discovery. As much as I thrive in roles where I can help people, contribute meaningfully, and create change, I've also faced burnout, frustration, and moments of profound disillusionment. This section is about navigating those challenges and finding ways to make peace with your place in the professional world as an INFJ. The INFJ's idealistic professional vision. INFJs often approach their work with a sense of mission. We don't just want a job, we want a calling. We seek purpose in everything we do, whether it's a creative project, a corporate role, or a community initiative. This can be both a strength and a curse. For example, when I started my first full-time job out of college, I had high hopes. I was working in a nonprofit organization focused on social justice, and I believed deeply in its mission. At first, everything felt aligned. I loved the work I was doing, the values of the organization resonated with me, and I felt a strong sense of satisfaction from contributing to causes I cared about. But as the months passed, I started to notice something unsettling. The work culture didn't always match the values being preached. The company prioritized efficiency over empathy, and the leadership team often seemed more focused on appearances than the actual impact they were making. My idealistic vision clashed with the reality of the situation. INFJs are prone to feeling disillusioned when our values don't align with the world around us. We can't help but see the bigger picture, and when that picture doesn't match the reality of our work environment, it can be incredibly difficult to maintain motivation. The constant tension between what we believe in and what we experience in the workplace can lead to feelings of frustration and burnout. The struggles with corporate culture. I've found that INFJs can struggle particularly in corporate environments that value conformity, hierarchy, and a more transactional approach to relationships. These environments often leave us feeling stifled and misunderstood, especially when our creativity and emotional depth are not acknowledged or valued. One job I had early in my career was in a large corporation where the pressure to perform was constant. Every meeting felt like a race against time. Every task was tied to measurable results. And there was little room for the kind of introspection or deep thought that I craved. At first, I tried to push through, thinking that I just needed to adapt. But the more I tried to conform, the more disconnected I became from myself and my work. It wasn't just the work itself that drained me. It was the constant feeling of being out of sync with my surroundings. INFJs need an environment that encourages personal growth, creativity, and emotional intelligence. When these things are absent, we can feel invisible or even irrelevant. In such environments, I found myself doubting my worth and questioning whether I was cut out for the corporate world at all. The challenge of dealing with narcissistic or antagonistic colleagues. One of the most challenging aspects of the professional world for INFJs is dealing with narcissistic or antagonistic colleagues. We thrive in environments where cooperation and understanding are prioritized, but unfortunately, not all workplaces are built on those principles. I once worked alongside a colleague who was an ESTJ, dominant, practical, and results-oriented. On paper, we should have balanced each other out. However, his blunt, no-nonsense attitude often felt dismissive of my ideas, and he had a tendency to steamroll over others in meetings. I remember one particular incident when I proposed a new approach to a project that I believed could improve team communication. It was thoughtful and well-researched. But as soon as I started presenting it, my ESTJ colleague interrupted me. "That's not how we do things around here. We don't have time for your idealistic ideas." His words hit hard. INFJs are often dreamers, and we bring a level of idealism and vision to our work. When that vision is dismissed or belittled, it feels like a direct attack on who we are. It was a challenge not to internalize his criticism and question my own worth. I spent a lot of time second-guessing myself and trying to adapt to his more rigid, pragmatic approach. But over time, I realized that just because someone doesn't value my perspective doesn't mean it's not valuable. INFJs often need to remember that we bring a different kind of wisdom to the table, one that's rooted in intuition, empathy, and creativity. And while not everyone will understand or appreciate that, it doesn't make it any less important. Still, the emotional toll of workplace conflicts. INFJs are sensitive souls, and workplace conflicts can take a significant emotional toll on us. We feel everything deeply, and the energy in a room, whether positive or negative, can affect our mood and productivity. There was a time when I worked in a team where tension was constant. The leadership was poor, and the office environment was toxic. People were pitted against each other, gossip was rampant, and no one seemed to care about fostering a healthy, supportive work culture. Every day felt like walking through a minefield, unsure when the next conflict would erupt. As an INFJ, I found it especially challenging to navigate these kinds of environments. I wanted to fix everything, to bring peace to the chaos, to help people understand each other. But the more I tried, the more emotionally drained I became. I realized that no matter how much I wanted to fix things, I wasn't responsible for everyone's emotions or the toxic environment that had been created. INFJs need to learn that we don't have to carry the weight of everyone's struggles, especially in work environments that aren't conducive to growth or collaboration. Sometimes the best thing we can do is protect our energy and remove ourselves from the negativity. Finding balance, protecting your energy while thriving in the workplace. After my experiences in toxic work environments, I learned the importance of setting boundaries to protect my energy. For INFJs, this can be especially difficult because we tend to be natural helpers, often taking on more than we can handle in the hope of improving a situation or supporting others. But the reality is, we can't thrive in a place that constantly drains us. In one of my more recent jobs, I made a conscious effort to take care of myself both emotionally and physically. I stopped overcommitting to extra tasks that weren't aligned with my strengths. I learned to say no when I needed to protect my time and energy. I also set clear boundaries with colleagues, especially those who had a tendency to take advantage of my empathetic nature. The importance of finding a role that aligns with your values. The key to thriving as an INFJ in the workplace is finding a role that aligns with your values and allows you to use your strengths. INFJs do best in environments where we can make a meaningful impact, whether that's through creative work, helping others, or contributing to a cause we believe in. For me, moving into a role that focused on strategic communications and community outreach allowed me to combine my empathy, creativity, and desire to make a difference. It wasn't a perfect job, but it aligned with my values, and I felt like I was contributing to something that mattered. Conclusion: embracing your strengths in the workplace. While the professional world can be challenging for INFJs, it's also full of opportunities for growth, purpose, and fulfillment. By understanding your own needs, setting boundaries, and seeking roles that align with your values, you can navigate the workplace in a way that honors who you are. INFJs are incredibly capable, driven, and creative individuals. The key to thriving in the workplace is not to conform to the expectations of others, but to create a space where your unique strengths can shine. Whether that's through finding the right role or learning to protect your emotional well-being, the journey is about embracing your individuality and recognizing that your vision, empathy, and idealism have a place in the world. Section 9. The INFJ and TJ connection, a unique intellectual bond. INFJs and INTJs are often described as kindred spirits in the Myers-Briggs world. Both types share the dominant function of introverted intuition, NNE, which means they process information in a similar way. However, where they differ is in their secondary functions. INFJs use extroverted feeling, F, while INTJs use extroverted thinking, T. This creates a fascinating dynamic, blending deep emotional insight with pragmatic problem solving. When these two types come together, the relationship can be a rich intellectual and emotional exchange. I've always had a special place in my heart for INTJs. There's something about their quiet intensity, their intellectual depth, and their laser-focused vision that fascinates me. They're the kind of people who have a plan for everything, and they approach life with a level of rationality and clarity that seems almost otherworldly. Yet despite the difference in approach, the connection between INFJs and INTJs is palpable. Meeting my first INTJ, a surprising connection. I'll never forget the first time I met Thomas, an INTJ, during a university seminar. At first glance, he seemed completely different from me, reserved, analytical, and direct. He wasn't the type to engage in casual chit-chat or share personal anecdotes. He was there for the ideas, for the intellectual challenge. It was a group discussion, and the topic was philosophy, something that I was deeply passionate about. We were assigned to debate the ethical implications of artificial intelligence. As someone who thrives on deep discussions, I dove right in, presenting my thoughts with passion and empathy. However, Thomas surprised me. Instead of dismissing my perspective, he immediately engaged, dissecting my points with a level of precision I hadn't expected. At first, I thought he was just playing devil's advocate, challenging me to refine my ideas. But soon I realized that he was genuinely interested in my perspective. It was rare to find someone who could both challenge me intellectually and respect my emotional depth. There was an unspoken understanding between us, one that felt both invigorating and comforting. In that moment, I realized the unique bond that can form between an INFJ and an INTJ. We were both deeply driven by our values and beliefs, yet our approaches were complementary. I cared about how people felt, while he cared about efficiency and logical outcomes. We both valued authenticity, but we brought different strengths to the table. My emotional insight, his strategic planning. It was a dance of intellect and emotion, and I knew this was something special. The intellectual connection, a meeting of minds. INFJs and INTJs bond most strongly over intellectual pursuits. Both types enjoy discussing abstract concepts, theorizing about the future, and diving deep into philosophical or scientific questions. Conversations with an INTJ can feel like exploring the unknown. There's an endless curiosity about how things work, why people behave the way they do, and how the world could be different if we made certain changes. One of my favorite things about talking to Thomas was the way our conversations would flow. We'd start with something simple, like a book we were both reading, and before long, we'd be discussing existentialism, artificial intelligence, and the nature of consciousness. There was never a dull moment. What was particularly fascinating about these conversations was the way our different cognitive functions came into play. For me, the emotional implications of an idea or theory were always central. I wanted to know how it made people feel, how it affected the world on a human level. But for Thomas, the focus was more on the logical structure, the practicality, and the long-term consequences. The contrast in our approaches created a balance that allowed both perspectives to be explored in depth. Our debates often felt less like disagreements and more like intellectual collaborations. When we would challenge each other's viewpoints, it wasn't personal. It was a way to refine our thinking. I learned to appreciate the logical rigor that Thomas brought to our discussions, while he began to understand the emotional complexity I valued. This back-and-forth exchange not only deepened our connection, but also helped both of us grow intellectually. Complementary strengths: INFJ emotion, INTJ logic. The key to the INFJ-INTJ connection lies in how our strengths complement each other. INFJs are known for their emotional insight, empathy, and understanding of human nature, while INTJs are valued for their strategic thinking, focus on efficiency, and goal-oriented mindset. Together, these strengths can create a powerful dynamic, especially when it comes to solving complex problems or navigating life's challenges. I've often found that when an INFJ and an INTJ collaborate, the result is greater than the sum of its parts. For example, Thomas and I once worked together on a community outreach project. While I focused on understanding the emotional needs of the people we were trying to help, Thomas honed in on the logistics and the big picture strategy. My intuition about people's needs helped guide his planning, while his ability to streamline processes allowed us to implement the project efficiently. There's also something deeply reassuring about the way INTJs approach challenges. While INFJs tend to rely on their intuition and emotional understanding, INTJs bring a level of structure and practicality that grounds us. Their ability to make decisions without being swayed by emotions can help us stay focused and make difficult choices. In turn, INFJs help INTJs stay connected to the human side of things, reminding them of the emotional impact of their decisions and the importance of empathy. The challenge of balancing emotion and logic. Despite the strong connection, there are moments when our different approaches can create friction. INFJs, being driven by extroverted feeling, often find themselves deeply attuned to the emotions of others. We want to create harmony, maintain positive relationships, and ensure that everyone feels heard. In contrast, INTJs with their extroverted thinking often focus on efficiency and results, which can sometimes come across as cold or impersonal. I remember one particular instance where Thomas and I disagreed on how to approach a situation at work. We were both leading a team, and I wanted to address some interpersonal conflicts that had been brewing among team members. For me, it was crucial to acknowledge everyone's feelings and ensure that the emotional tension was resolved. Thomas, however, felt that addressing the conflict head-on in a practical, no-nonsense way would be more effective. He believed that focusing on the task at hand would ultimately lead to better results, even if emotions were left unspoken. This difference in approach caused some tension between us. For me, the emotional well-being of the team was just as important as the project's success. For Thomas, the efficiency of getting things done was paramount. We had to find a way to compromise, to address the emotional issues in a way that was still productive. It wasn't always easy, but it was a learning experience. Over time, I learned that sometimes the best way to maintain harmony is to be pragmatic. And Thomas learned that people are more motivated when their emotions are acknowledged. The unspoken understanding. Silent support. Despite our differences, there's an unspoken understanding that exists between INFJs and INTJs. We both value deep thinking and introspection, and we respect each other's need for alone time. There's no pressure to be constantly social or to perform for one another. We can simply exist in each other's company, knowing that we are both absorbed in our thoughts, yet still emotionally attuned to each other. For instance, there were many evenings when Thomas and I would spend hours at a cafe, each of us absorbed in a book or working on a project. We didn't have to talk constantly to feel connected. The silent presence of the other was enough. This mutual respect for solitude, paired with our shared intellectual pursuits, made our bond feel effortless. Conclusion: a lasting intellectual partnership. The relationship between INFJs and INTJs is one of the most intellectually enriching partnerships in the Myers-Briggs system. Both types bring complementary strengths to the table. INFJs with their emotional insight and intuitive understanding of people, and INTJs with their logical rigor and strategic planning. When these two types connect, they create a partnership that is greater than the sum of its parts. While challenges can arise, particularly in balancing emotion and logic, the connection between INFJs and INTJs is rooted in mutual respect, intellectual curiosity, and a shared desire to improve the world. Whether as friends, collaborators, or romantic partners, INFJs and INTJs form a unique and enduring bond that can withstand the test of time. Section 10. The INFJ-INFJ relationship. A dance of deep connection. As an INFJ, there's something incredibly unique about connecting with another INFJ. It's as if two souls who have long been searching for a kindred spirit finally find each other. The emotional and intellectual connection is profound, and the shared understanding of each other's inner world can create a relationship that feels almost otherworldly. But as with any relationship, particularly one between two people of the same type, the connection can be both beautiful and challenging. In this section, I want to dive into the complexities of the INFJ-INFJ dynamic. I'll share my own experiences, reflect on the strengths and challenges of being in a relationship with someone who mirrors your deepest qualities, and explore how we can navigate both the profound connection and the potential pitfalls that come with it. The initial connection, a meeting of minds and souls. The first time I met Laura, another INFJ, I felt like I was meeting a reflection of myself. There was an immediate sense of familiarity and understanding between us, almost as if we had known each other for a lifetime. Even though we had just met, we were drawn together by our shared interests, spirituality, psychology, and a desire to understand the world on a deeper level. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, like two pieces of a puzzle fitting perfectly together. It was as if we both knew how the other felt before a word was spoken. The connection was intense, magnetic, and deeply emotional. We bonded over our shared idealism, our desire to help others, and our deep sensitivity to the world around us. We talked for hours, exchanging thoughts and ideas, and when the conversation finally ended, there was this unspoken knowing between us. I get you. As INFJs, we often feel like we're different from others. Our intuition is strong, and our need for deep emotional connection can sometimes leave us feeling misunderstood or out of place. Meeting someone who shares that same depth of understanding is incredibly validating. And for the first time, I felt like I had found someone who truly understood me on every level, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. The deep emotional connection. A shared sensitivity. One of the most profound aspects of an INFJ-INFJ relationship is the shared emotional depth. INFJs feel everything deeply, our joys, our sorrows, our hopes, and our fears. When two INFJs come together, there's an immediate recognition of each other's emotional landscape. We both understand what it means to be sensitive, to feel everything so intensely, and to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. In my relationship with Laura, this emotional connection was palpable. We both had a deep empathy for others, and we could feel the emotions of those around us, often more intensely than we cared to admit. We would often spend hours talking about our experiences, reflecting on the emotional currents of our lives, and trying to make sense of the world's complexities. We understood each other's emotional highs and lows without needing to explain them. There's something incredibly validating about being in a relationship with someone who doesn't need you to explain your feelings. They just know. If I was feeling overwhelmed or drained, Laura could sense it instantly and would know exactly what to do to comfort me. Likewise, if she was struggling with something, I could empathize with her without needing her to say a word. It was a constant exchange of emotional support, which made us feel incredibly safe with each other. However, this emotional depth can also be a double-edged sword. As INFJs, we tend to internalize our emotions, and sometimes that means we carry them in silence. When two INFJs are in a relationship, there can be a tendency to bottle things up and hope the other person will understand without us having to express ourselves. While the emotional connection is strong, it's easy to fall into the trap of assuming that the other person knows exactly how you feel, even when they may not. The challenge of idealism, navigating the expectations. Another aspect of the INFJ-INFJ relationship that can be both beautiful and challenging is our shared idealism. INFJs are dreamers, and we have a vision for a better world, a world that is more compassionate, more connected, and more just. When two INFJs come together, there's a shared vision for what we want to achieve, and that can create a sense of purpose and passion in the relationship. However, idealism can also lead to disappointment. INFJs have high standards, not just for ourselves, but also for others. We expect the world to reflect our ideals, and we believe that deep connections should be pure and unblemished. This can create unrealistic expectations in a relationship, particularly with another INFJ. When we see the imperfections in the person we're with, someone who mirrors us, it can be difficult to reconcile the ideal with the reality. I've found that this is where many INFJ-INFJ relationships hit a bump. We can both have a tendency to idealize one another, seeing the other person through a lens of perfection. But eventually, the reality sets in. No one is perfect, and even the most deeply connected INFJs have flaws and vulnerabilities. Sometimes the idealized version of each other can lead to frustration, when we realize that we are not living up to our own high expectations. For example, I remember a time when Laura and I were navigating a period of tension in our relationship. We had both been through some personal challenges, and the emotional weight was starting to take a toll on us. I found myself feeling disappointed that we weren't living up to the harmonious, deeply connected relationship I had imagined. I began to expect Laura to be my emotional rock all the time, without acknowledging that she too needed support and space to process her feelings. The dance of independence and togetherness. INFJs value their independence. We need time alone to recharge, to reflect, and to reconnect with our inner world. In a relationship between two INFJs, this need for independence can sometimes create a push and pull dynamic. We both want to connect deeply, but we also need our space to be ourselves. This can be a delicate balance to maintain. At times, one of us might need more space than the other, and that can lead to misunderstandings. For example, when I felt overwhelmed and retreated into solitude, Laura might have taken it personally, thinking that I was distancing myself from her. Similarly, if Laura needed space to process her emotions, I might have felt abandoned, even though I knew she just needed time to herself. The key to making an INFJ-INFJ relationship work is communication. We need to be open about our needs for space and time alone, while also being aware of the emotional needs of the other person. It's important to remember that just because we need time to recharge doesn't mean we don't value the relationship. It's simply a part of who we are as INFJs. The strengths of the INFJ-INFJ relationship. Despite the challenges, there are countless strengths in an INFJ-INFJ relationship. The emotional connection is unparalleled, and the intellectual conversations can be endlessly stimulating. There's a deep sense of understanding and acceptance between two INFJs that can make the relationship feel like home. We both value authenticity, and we're not afraid to open up about our vulnerabilities, which creates a sense of trust and safety. There's also a shared desire for growth. INFJs are constantly evolving, seeking to understand themselves and the world around them. When two INFJs are in a relationship, there's a mutual respect for each other's personal growth journey. We support each other in our goals and dreams, and we encourage each other to reach our full potential. Conclusion: a journey of mutual growth. The INFJ-INFJ relationship is one of deep connection, intellectual stimulation, and emotional depth. It's a relationship where two people truly understand each other's inner world, where the bond feels almost telepathic. But it's also a relationship that requires patience, communication, and a willingness to navigate the complexities of idealism, independence, and emotional sensitivity. For INFJs, being in a relationship with another INFJ can be a beautiful and transformative experience. It's a journey of mutual growth, where both partners can support and challenge each other in equal measure. But like any relationship, it requires effort, understanding, and a willingness to embrace both the light and the shadows of who we are. Section 11. The INFJ-ENFJ dynamic, a partnership of support and leadership. When it comes to compatibility, few pairings see are as dynamic and nurturing as the relationship between an INFJ and an ENFJ. These two types share the same dominant function, introverted intuition, uroniai, which means they process the world in a similar, deep, and reflective way. What sets them apart is the secondary function. INFJs use extroverted feeling, itofi, which leads to a deep understanding of others' emotions and the desire for harmony, while ENFJs use extroverted feeling, fio, too, but in a more outwardly assertive, leadership-focused way. This subtle difference in how they express their values and connect with the outside world creates a beautiful and complex dynamic in both friendships and romantic relationships. In this section, I'll explore the INFJ-ENFJ relationship, shedding light on the shared values, the unique strengths of each type, and how they balance each other out in meaningful ways. Drawing from my own experiences and reflections, I'll share how an INFJ can benefit from the support of an ENFJ, and how an ENFJ can grow from the introspective and emotional depth of an INFJ. The magnetic first meeting, finding a shared vision. My first encounter with Jennifer, an ENFJ, was unexpected. I remember walking into a small group meeting at a local coffee shop. I had been asked to participate in a community outreach project, and when I walked in, I instantly noticed Jennifer's energy. She had this magnetic presence about her, warm, welcoming, and incredibly engaging. I could sense that she was one of those people who naturally took charge of a room, but in a way that made everyone feel included and valued. At first, I didn't know if we'd connect. ENFJs are often outwardly assertive, and I tend to be more reserved. But the more we talked, the more I realized how deeply aligned we were in our values. We both cared about helping people, about making the world a better place, and about understanding the complexities of human nature. Our conversation flowed naturally, with Jennifer asking insightful questions and listening intently as I shared my thoughts. There was an unspoken understanding between us from the start. It was clear that while we approached the world differently, she in an extroverted, outward-facing way, and I in a more introspective and reserved manner, we both wanted the same thing: connection, empathy, and meaningful change. I felt as if I had met someone who could inspire me to reach higher, but who also respected the quieter, more reflective side of me. The complementary strengths, vision, and leadership. One of the most notable aspects of an INFJ-ENFJ relationship is how complementary our strengths are. Both types share a deep understanding of human nature, and both are driven by a desire to help others. However, the way we express those values differs significantly. As an INFJ, I tend to approach people and situations with a quiet, intuitive understanding of what is needed. I want to create harmony, to connect on a deeper emotional level, and to ensure that everyone feels understood. My Fae, while active, is more internally focused. I'm constantly processing the emotions and needs of others. But I'm not always the first to step forward and lead. I value deep, intimate conversations, and I thrive in settings where there's a sense of safety and mutual respect. Jennifer, on the other hand, is an ENFJ, someone who uses her Fae in a more extroverted and assertive way. She's not just aware of others' emotions, she actively manages and influences the environment around her, encouraging people to come together for a common purpose. Her natural leadership shines in situations that require action, organization, and rallying people to a cause. She sees the bigger picture and has an incredible ability to motivate others with her energy and passion. This dynamic is where the INFJ-ENFJ relationship really shines. While I may be more reserved in taking leadership roles, Jennifer is perfectly suited to lead with her vibrant energy and strong sense of direction. She empowers those around her, and as an INFJ, I appreciate the way she makes others feel seen and heard. She's often the glue that holds things together in a group, providing structure and support. In turn, I bring a depth of insight and emotional understanding that helps Jennifer see the human side of any challenge. I might be more inclined to question the emotional dynamics of a situation, sensing undercurrents of tension or potential conflict that others might overlook. While Jennifer leads with an outward focus, I offer the introspective guidance that ensures we don't lose sight of the personal needs and feelings of those involved. Our balance of vision and leadership creates a strong foundation for mutual growth and impact. The emotional bond. Mutual support and understanding. One of the most rewarding aspects of being in a relationship with an ENFJ is the mutual emotional support. Jennifer's warmth and empathy make her a natural support system for those she cares about. But I've also found that when she's open to it, she deeply values the emotional insights I offer. The key difference between us is that while she's an outward communicator, I tend to process my emotions more internally. Jennifer might be more vocal about her feelings, seeking support from others to work through challenges, while I might retreat to process things on my own first. However, there is always a deep understanding between us. Jennifer knows when I need space to reflect and is respectful of that. At the same time, she's quick to offer support when she senses that I might be struggling emotionally. I, in turn, am always there to listen to her thoughts and feelings with the kind of deep empathy that she often provides for others. We have a kind of unspoken emotional rhythm where each of us intuitively knows when the other needs comforting or when it's time to take the lead. One of the most beautiful moments I experienced with Jennifer was when I was going through a particularly difficult period in my personal life. She sensed that I was holding back and, without pushing me, gave me the space I needed. But at the same time, she made sure I knew that she was there if I wanted to talk. Her patience and understanding allowed me to process my emotions at my own pace. And when I was ready to open up, she listened with a level of empathy that only someone like her could provide. The challenge: balancing assertiveness with sensitivity. Despite our many similarities, there are times when our differences can create tension. Jennifer, as an ENFJ, tends to be very assertive in her approach to relationships and problem solving. She wants to make sure everyone is taken care of and that no one feels left behind. While this is a strength, it can also sometimes feel overwhelming for me as an INFJ. As someone who is more introspective, I can find the constant attention and outward engagement draining at times. For instance, there was a period when Jennifer, eager to make a difference in our community, planned a large-scale volunteer event. She was excited about the idea and her enthusiasm was contagious. But as the event drew closer, I started to feel the pressure. The constant meetings, the need to engage with so many people, and the emotional intensity of trying to ensure everything went smoothly began to overwhelm me. I found myself withdrawing, needing quiet time to recharge, while Jennifer continued to push forward, rallying the group and keeping everything on track. It took a while for us to find a balance. I needed to communicate more openly about my need for downtime, and Jennifer had to learn to respect my quieter moments without taking it personally. At the same time, I needed to understand that Jennifer's leadership style came from a place of caring and a desire to help. We eventually found a way to compromise, with Jennifer taking the lead on the logistical aspects of the event, while I helped with the emotional support and deeper engagement with the volunteers. The growth, encouraging each other's potential. Perhaps one of the most rewarding aspects of being in a relationship with an ENFJ is the way we encourage each other's personal growth. ENFJs are natural motivators. They are deeply attuned to the potential in others and want to help them realize it. In my case, Jennifer often encouraged me to step outside my comfort zone, to share my insights more openly, and to embrace my own leadership potential. On the flip side, I've helped Jennifer slow down and reflect on her own emotional needs. Her desire to help others is a beautiful trait, but at times she can become so absorbed in others' struggles that she neglects her own well-being. I've been able to offer her the space to process her feelings and to take care of herself, reminding her that she too needs time to recharge and nurture her own emotional world. Together, we push each other to grow in different ways, and I think that's what makes our relationship so powerful. We both bring out the best in each other, complementing each other's strengths and offering support in areas where the other might struggle. Conclusion: a partnership built on vision, leadership, and mutual growth. The ENFJ-ENFJ relationship is one of deep emotional connection, mutual respect, and shared values. Both types bring unique strengths to the table, creating a dynamic that fosters personal and collective growth. While challenges can arise, particularly around balancing assertiveness and introspection, the bond between these two types is built on a foundation of empathy, understanding, and a shared desire to make a positive impact on the world. In my relationship with Jennifer, I've learned that we don't have to be the same to create something beautiful together. Our differences, both in how we approach the world and how we process emotions, create a balance that enhances both of our lives. Section 12. The INFJ-INFP dynamic, a journey of emotional depth and mutual understanding. When it comes to emotional depth and a shared sense of idealism, few pairings match the connection between an INFJ and an INFP. Both are deeply introspective and empathetic, driven by strong internal values and a desire to make the world a better place. Their shared intuitive understanding of the world creates a bond that feels almost ethereal, yet the dynamics between them can be incredibly complex. In this section, we'll dive into the INFJ-INFP dynamic, exploring the emotional connection, the challenges, and the transformative potential of a relationship rooted in mutual understanding and authenticity. Drawing from my own experiences, I'll share how INFJs and INFPs navigate their similarities and differences, and how they can create a profound relationship that supports each other's growth. The initial spark: finding kindred spirits. I'll never forget the first time I met Sarah, an INFP, at a quiet local bookstore. She was sitting in the corner, deeply absorbed in a book of poetry. There was something magnetic about her, this quiet aura of vulnerability mixed with a kind of strength that I couldn't quite place. I knew immediately that we were kindred spirits, even though I didn't yet understand the depth of what that would mean. We started talking about our favorite books and quickly discovered that we had a shared passion for literature that explored human nature, emotions, and the complexities of life. I was struck by Sarah's ability to articulate the way she felt, her words coming out in a soft but confident stream. She had this rare ability to express her internal world in a way that felt both raw and beautiful. It was refreshing because, as an INFJ, I often found it difficult to share the intensity of my emotions with others without feeling misunderstood. We both had an intuitive understanding of each other's inner worlds. I could see the layers of her personality, her idealism, her deep emotional currents, and the way she carefully navigated the world in search of authenticity. For Sarah, it was the same. She understood that I was someone who saw the world not just as it was, but as it could be, full of potential and possibilities. The connection was immediate, and as we spent more time together, it became clear that our relationship would be one marked by emotional intimacy and a deep sense of understanding. Emotional resonance, the depth of feeling between INFJ and INFP. One of the most powerful aspects of the INFJ-INFP relationship is the shared emotional depth. Both types are highly sensitive to their own feelings and to the emotions of others. The INFJ's dominant function, introverted intuition, ENFJ, guides them to understand deeper meanings behind events, while the INFP's dominant function, introverted feeling, ENFJ, drives them to seek personal authenticity and align their actions with their internal values. When Sarah and I would talk, the conversations would often dive into the heart of human experiences: love, pain, loss, hope, and dreams. We could spend hours discussing our hopes for the future, the ways we wish the world could be, and the personal journeys we were on. There was no need to censor ourselves or to hold back, because we both understood the unspoken truth. We were both deeply idealistic and in search of a connection that transcended surface-level interactions. For me, this was something rare. As an INFJ, I often feel like I have to put up emotional walls to protect myself from people who don't understand the depths of my thoughts and feelings. But with Sarah, I could let my guard down. She wasn't afraid of the complexities within me. Instead, she embraced them. In turn, I was able to offer her the same level of acceptance and understanding. There was no judgment, no pretending to be something we weren't. We could both just be. The emotional resonance between INFJs and INFPs is powerful because it's rooted in authenticity. Both types value honesty, not just in actions, but in emotional expression. We share a deep sense of empathy and a desire to connect with others on a profound level. For INFJs and INFPs, the relationship becomes a safe space where emotions are free to flow without fear of being misunderstood. Challenges of emotional overload. Navigating intensity together. While the emotional depth shared between INFJs and INFPs is a source of great connection, it can also be a source of challenge. Both types experience emotions intensely. INFJs through their intuitive understanding of others' feelings, and INFPs through their personal, deeply held values. This intensity can sometimes lead to emotional overload, especially if both partners are struggling with difficult emotions at the same time. There were moments in my relationship with Sarah when we both felt overwhelmed by the weight of the world. We would dive so deeply into the emotional aspects of our lives and the lives of others that we both felt exhausted. The emotional intensity was beautiful, but it could also be draining. There were times when we would unintentionally mirror each other's struggles, creating a feedback loop of sadness or frustration that felt hard to break. During those times, it was essential for both of us to remember the importance of emotional boundaries. While our bond was based on shared vulnerability, we also had to learn how to give each other space when needed. Sarah, as an INFP, sometimes needed solitude to process her emotions, while I, as an INFJ, needed time to retreat and reflect before I could re-engage. It took time for us to find balance in this dynamic. We both learned to respect each other's need for emotional space and to communicate when we felt overwhelmed. We also learned that it wasn't always necessary to solve each other's problems or to carry each other's emotional burdens. Sometimes the most supportive thing we could do was simply to be present for each other, offering understanding and quiet companionship. Complementary strengths, helping each other grow. Despite the emotional challenges, the INFJ-INFP relationship is rich with opportunities for growth. One of the most beautiful things about the connection between these two types is the way they complement each other's strengths. INFJs, with their INFJ combination, tend to see the big picture and understand the underlying motivations behind people's actions. They can be highly empathetic and intuitive about others' needs, but they sometimes struggle with personal authenticity, especially in situations that require assertiveness or self-expression. INFPs, on the other hand, excel in personal authenticity and are deeply attuned to their inner emotional landscape. They are guided by their personal values and are often unafraid to speak their truth, even when it's difficult. In my relationship with Sarah, I found that she helped me embrace my true self. I had spent much of my life trying to live up to external expectations, particularly in relationships, and Sarah showed me how to be more honest and authentic about my feelings and desires. She taught me the importance of expressing my emotions freely, without worrying about how they would be received. In return, I helped Sarah navigate the complexities of her idealism. As an INFP, she often struggled with the gap between her dreams and the reality of the world. She wanted to make a difference, but sometimes felt disillusioned by the limitations of what was possible. I offered her a perspective that helped her see the value in small, incremental changes, encouraging her to focus on what she could do in the present rather than getting overwhelmed by the grand vision. Together, we created a space where both of us could grow in ways that aligned with our personal values. I learned how to be more authentically myself, and Sarah learned how to temper her idealism with practical action. It was a balance between emotional depth and personal growth, and it was a beautiful journey of self-discovery for both of us. The quiet understanding. A bond beyond words. At the heart of the INFJ-INFP relationship is a deep, unspoken understanding. Both types are highly introspective, and their connection often feels more like an unspoken bond than a conversation. In times of silence, we could simply be together, no words needed. This quiet understanding was one of the most comforting aspects of my relationship with Sarah. There were many moments when we would simply sit in silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts, but still feeling deeply connected. It wasn't uncomfortable silence. Rather, it was a peaceful and shared experience. We didn't have to explain ourselves or justify our feelings. We simply knew. This silence didn't feel empty. It felt full of everything we had shared and everything we were still learning about each other. It was a space of acceptance, where both of us felt seen, understood, and valued. Conclusion: a relationship of emotional depth and authenticity. The INFJ-INFP relationship is one of deep emotional connection and mutual growth. It's a relationship rooted in authenticity, where both partners can be their true selves and share their most vulnerable parts without fear of judgment. While there are challenges, especially around emotional intensity and the need for space, the connection between these two types has the potential to be transformative. For INFJs and INFPs, the key to navigating this relationship lies in understanding and respecting each other's emotional needs, embracing the shared depth of feeling, and creating a safe space for growth and self-expression. When both partners are open to learning from each other and supporting each other's authenticity, the result is a deeply fulfilling and transformative relationship. Section 13. The INFJ-INTJ dynamic. A relationship of depth, strategy, and intellectual challenge. The INFJ-INTJ dynamic is one of intellectual stimulation, deep connection, and strategic growth. At first glance, it may seem like an odd pairing. Two introverts who are both driven by a desire for purpose and understanding, yet with very different approaches to achieving their goals. The INFJ is the idealist, seeking meaning and harmony in the world, while the INTJ is the strategic mastermind focused on logic, efficiency, and long-term planning. Despite these differences, this relationship has the potential to be profoundly impactful, as both types can challenge and complement each other in unique ways. In this section, we'll explore the INFJ-INTJ dynamic, looking at how these two types relate to each other, the challenges they face, and the growth that can emerge from their connection. Through my own experiences and reflections, I'll highlight the power of this pairing and how it can create a relationship grounded in intellectual stimulation, emotional depth, and mutual respect. The intellectual spark, a meeting of minds. The first time I met Evan, an INTJ, I didn't quite know what to expect. I'd always been drawn to people who could engage me on a deep intellectual level, but I had never met anyone who approached thought and strategy in the way that he did. We met at a lecture on personal development, where both of us were, of course, analyzing the speaker's points in our own way. Afterward, we found ourselves in a quiet corner of the coffee shop, discussing the implications of the lecture in detail. I could feel the intellectual tension between us. Evan was sharp, his mind always 3 steps ahead of the conversation. He was analytical, breaking down ideas with precision and offering solutions that were both practical and innovative. On the other hand, I found myself diving into the emotional and philosophical implications of the lecture. I wanted to understand the bigger picture, why the speaker's ideas mattered on a human level, not just in terms of strategy or efficiency. What struck me most about Evan was his ability to balance intellectual rigor with a calm, almost detached demeanor. He wasn't emotionally expressive, but there was something about his clarity of thought that drew me in. For the first time, I found someone who could keep up with my depth of thought, and yet his approach was refreshingly different. Where I saw possibilities and emotional nuances, he saw structure and practical application. Our conversations often felt like a dance, me offering my insights on the emotional and existential elements of a situation, while he countered with a logical and strategic perspective. Despite our differences, there was a mutual respect for each other's intellect, and that respect formed the foundation of our connection, the balance of strategy and idealism. One of the most fascinating aspects of the INFJ and TJ dynamic is the balance between the idealism of the INFJ and the strategic thinking of the INTJ. As an INFJ, I'm driven by a sense of vision and a desire to make the world a better place. I see the potential for change in everything, from personal relationships to global issues. However, my idealism often leads to a lack of concrete steps to bring those dreams to fruition. I may have grand ideas, but I often struggle with the details of how to execute them. Evan, on the other hand, has a natural talent for strategy. He can look at a problem and break it down into manageable pieces, devising a clear, efficient path to achieving the goal. He is future-focused, often thinking several steps ahead and anticipating potential obstacles. While his approach can seem cold or overly pragmatic at times, it's undeniably effective. This is where our dynamic becomes truly powerful. My idealism provides the vision, while Evan's strategic mind offers the framework to turn those visions into reality. We complement each other in a way that allows us to take on challenges with a balanced approach, his plans grounded in practicality, and my ideals providing the motivation and purpose behind the action. There have been moments when Evan has pushed me to be more realistic in my approach, to think in terms of practical steps rather than just lofty dreams. While this was sometimes frustrating, I've come to see the value in his perspective. He helps me turn my ideas into something tangible, something that can be acted upon rather than just dreamt about. In turn, I help Evan remember that not everything can be reduced to strategy and efficiency. Sometimes the most important changes come from a place of emotion, intuition, and human connection. I remind him that the path to success is not always a straight line, and that flexibility and understanding the bigger picture are just as important as planning every move. The emotional disconnect. Finding common ground. While the intellectual connection between INFJs and INTJs is strong, the emotional dynamic can sometimes be more complicated. INFJs are deeply emotional and attuned to the feelings of others, while INTJs are often more focused on logic and efficiency, sometimes coming across as emotionally distant. This can lead to misunderstandings, especially in moments when the INFJ needs emotional support and the INTJ responds in a more analytical, solution-oriented manner. In my relationship with Evan, there were times when I felt frustrated by his lack of emotional expression. When I was going through a difficult time, I often wanted him to offer comfort, to listen and understand my emotional needs. Instead, Evan would focus on practical solutions, offering ways to fix the problem. While his intentions were always good, his approach sometimes felt like it lacked the emotional depth I was craving. It took time for both of us to recognize that this wasn't a lack of caring on Evan's part. It was simply his way of processing the situation. Evan's emotional responses were less about showing empathy in the moment and more about offering actionable solutions once the emotional storm had passed. Over time, I learned to communicate my emotional needs more clearly, and Evan learned to recognize when I needed emotional reassurance rather than a solution. Similarly, I had to learn that Evan's need for space and independence wasn't a rejection of me. As an INTJ, Evan valued autonomy and often needed time alone to process his thoughts and emotions. While I, as an INFJ, craved connection and closeness, I had to respect his need for solitude. We found a balance by learning to give each other the space to be ourselves while still maintaining a strong emotional connection. The growth of both partners. One of the most rewarding aspects of the INFJ-INTJ dynamic is the opportunity for personal growth. As an INFJ, I tend to be introspective, often caught up in my own idealistic dreams and desires for change. I sometimes struggle with focusing on the practical aspects of life, which can make it difficult to bring my ideas to fruition. Evan, on the other hand, is constantly focused on self-improvement and mastering new skills, always seeking ways to optimize and refine his approach to life. Through our relationship, I've learned to adopt some of Evan's more strategic thinking. I've become more practical in my approach to my goals, breaking them down into smaller, manageable steps rather than getting lost in the big picture. I've also learned to appreciate the value of efficiency and structure in achieving long-term success. Evan, in turn, has learned to embrace the emotional side of life. He has become more open to exploring his feelings and understanding the emotional dynamics in his relationships. While he may never be as emotionally expressive as I am, he has grown to understand the importance of emotional connection and the value of empathy in fostering deeper relationships. Together, we've created a partnership that combines intellectual depth with emotional growth. We challenge each other to think more critically, to stretch beyond our comfort zones, and to become better versions of ourselves. Conclusion: a relationship of balance, challenge, and transformation. The INFJ-INTJ dynamic is one of intellectual challenge, strategic growth, and deep emotional connection. While the differences between these two types can sometimes create tension, they also offer incredible opportunities for growth. The INFJ brings vision, idealism, and emotional depth, while the INTJ brings strategy, logic, and a focus on long-term goals. Together, they create a relationship that is both intellectually stimulating and emotionally fulfilling. The key to making this relationship work lies in mutual respect for each other's strengths and differences. By understanding and appreciating each other's perspectives, INFJs and INTJs can create a bond that allows both partners to grow, both intellectually and emotionally. This relationship is not for the faint of heart, but for those who are willing to embrace the challenge. The rewards are profound. Section 14. The INFJ-ESTJ dynamic. A clash of values and approach. When you think of an INFJ and an ESTJ in a relationship, it's hard not to picture a clash of worlds. INFJs, with their idealistic and introspective nature, tend to be more emotionally driven, focused on depth and meaning, while ESTJs are pragmatic, logical, and focused on efficiency and structure. Their values and ways of processing the world can seem diametrically opposed, making this pairing one of the most challenging for an INFJ. However, there's a certain intensity in this relationship that forces both partners to grow in unexpected ways, if they're willing to navigate their differences. In this section, we'll explore the INFJ-ESTJ dynamic, diving into the challenges and complexities of a relationship between these two very different types. We'll look at personal anecdotes, the impact of contrasting values, and how this relationship can be transformative when both partners are open to understanding and adjusting to each other's needs. The initial attraction, fascination with the opposite. The first time I met Tom, an ESTJ, I didn't know what to make of him. He was confident, direct, and had this undeniable presence that filled the room. We met in a professional setting. He was a colleague in a project I was working on, and from the moment we started collaborating, I could sense that we approached tasks in drastically different ways. He was all about order, structure, and efficiency. I, on the other hand, was more concerned with the bigger picture, how the work we were doing could align with a deeper purpose. At first, I found his no-nonsense attitude refreshing. There was something about his decisiveness and the way he commanded attention that I admired. As an INFJ, I sometimes found myself overthinking or hesitating, caught up in my idealistic vision of how things should be. Tom, however, took charge, offering clear instructions and an almost unshakable confidence in his ability to get things done. It was hard not to be impressed by that. But as our interactions deepened, the contrast between our approaches became more apparent. Tom was driven by logic and practicality, making decisions quickly and with little hesitation. He valued results over processes, and his get-it-done attitude often left little room for reflection or consideration of personal feelings. I, on the other hand, was more focused on the process itself, on how we could align our work with values that felt meaningful and authentic. I often found myself questioning the methods we were using, wanting to ensure that what we were doing was both efficient and aligned with the greater good. This tendency to look for deeper meaning often clashed with Tom's straightforward, efficiency-focused mindset. Clashing values, idealism versus pragmatism. As our professional relationship evolved into a more personal one, I began to see the true extent of our differences. INFJs are driven by their values. They care deeply about how their actions impact others and whether they align with their internal sense of morality. For me, this often translated into a need to explore emotional depth, to understand how people felt, and to approach tasks with an eye toward both efficiency and meaning. I wanted to contribute to the world in a way that was not just effective, but also compassionate and reflective of my values. Tom, however, was far more pragmatic. His main concern was achieving tangible results and adhering to rules and systems. He found comfort in structure, in clear plans, and in processes that could be replicated for success. He often seemed uninterested in discussing the emotional aspects of situations, which left me feeling like my concerns were dismissed or misunderstood. Where I sought depth, Tom sought efficiency. Where I wanted understanding and emotional resonance, he wanted action and results. The clash of values was evident in how we approached everything from decision-making to conflict resolution. When disagreements arose, Tom's default mode was to be direct and pragmatic, focusing on solutions and moving on quickly. I, on the other hand, would want to understand the emotional underpinnings of the issue, to explore how it affected us both, and to communicate openly about our feelings. This approach sometimes felt frustrating for Tom, who believed that dwelling on emotions slowed down progress. I'll never forget one particular argument we had about a personal project. I wanted to take a more creative, open-ended approach, whereas Tom wanted everything to be highly organized and structured. I felt like he was stifling my ability to explore new ideas, while he felt like I was wasting time by not sticking to the plan. The tension between our values was palpable, and it took us a long time to find any common ground. Learning to appreciate each other's strengths. Despite the tension and frustration, something interesting happened as we spent more time together. We started to recognize the value in our differences, even if we didn't always fully understand them. I began to see that Tom's directness and structure weren't just a reflection of a rigid personality. They were tools that helped him navigate the world with clarity and purpose. His ability to make quick decisions and stick to a plan allowed him to accomplish things that I might have hesitated to pursue, bogged down by analysis or idealism. At the same time, Tom started to appreciate the emotional depth I brought to our relationship. My focus on meaning and connection challenged him to think beyond results and efficiency. I encouraged him to consider the emotional impact of his decisions, to think about how his actions affected others on a deeper level. In turn, he helped me see the importance of staying grounded in reality and not getting lost in idealistic dreams. He showed me that while ideals were important, it was equally important to be pragmatic and take real-world action. We began to find a balance in our relationship. I learned to respect Tom's need for structure and efficiency, and he learned to make room for emotional reflection and depth. The beauty of this dynamic lies in the fact that even though we approach the world from vastly different perspectives, we both have the capacity to challenge and inspire each other. Conflict and resolution. learning to communicate across differences. In any relationship, conflict is inevitable, but for an INFJ-ESTJ pairing, it can often feel like two opposing forces at war. INFJs value communication that is nuanced and emotionally rich, while ESTJs prefer directness and clarity. When conflicts arise, INFJs can feel overwhelmed or unheard, while ESTJs can feel frustrated with what they perceive as emotional overreaction or unnecessary complexity. In my relationship with Tom, there were many times when our conflict resolution styles were at odds. I wanted to talk things through in a way that acknowledged the emotional dynamics of the situation, while Tom simply wanted to address the issue head-on and move forward. At times, this left me feeling like my feelings were being invalidated or ignored. Meanwhile, Tom often felt like I was dragging out the process, making it harder to resolve the issue quickly. Over time, we learned that effective communication was key. We had to meet in the middle. Tom had to slow down and listen more deeply to my emotional concerns, and I had to recognize that sometimes addressing the issue directly and efficiently could be just as effective as exploring every emotional nuance. It wasn't easy, but with patience and a willingness to understand each other's needs, we eventually found a way to communicate that respected both our approaches. One breakthrough moment came when I realized that Tom wasn't dismissing my emotions. He simply didn't always know how to engage with them in the way I needed. By expressing my emotions more directly and asking for his support in specific ways, I made it easier for him to meet me where I was. Likewise, Tom learned that sometimes it wasn't about fixing the problem right away. It was about acknowledging the feelings that were driving it. Conclusion: finding growth through contrast. The INFJ-ESTJ dynamic is not for the faint of heart. It is a relationship fraught with tension, misunderstandings, and clashes of values. However, it is also a relationship that holds great potential for growth. Through the challenges, both partners have the opportunity to learn from each other's strengths and grow in areas they might otherwise overlook. INFJs can teach ESTJs the importance of emotional depth, of considering the human aspect of decisions, while ESTJs can teach INFJs how to be more grounded in reality, to take decisive action and achieve tangible results. By learning to respect each other's differences and finding ways to communicate effectively, an INFJ-ESTJ relationship can evolve into one of mutual respect and profound personal growth. In the end, this dynamic is about balance between idealism and pragmatism, emotional depth and efficiency, reflection and action. When both partners embrace their differences, they can create a partnership that is both challenging and transformative, one that encourages both growth and understanding. Section 15. The INFJ-INFP dynamic, a relationship of deep emotional connection and shared ideals. When you imagine two INFJs in a relationship, it's easy to think that they would connect on a profound level, understanding each other's complexities and emotional depths. However, what happens when an INFJ connects with an INFP, the other idealist personality type? There's a special kind of magic in this dynamic. The INFJ-INFP relationship is one grounded in emotional depth, shared ideals, and a mutual yearning for authenticity and connection. It's a pairing that feels like two souls meeting at the intersection of dreams and emotions. In this section, we'll explore the INFJ-INFP dynamic, focusing on the warmth, understanding, and transformative growth that these two types can experience together. We'll look at personal anecdotes, challenges, and how their deep emotional connection and shared values can create a bond that feels both magical and enduring. The initial connection. A meeting of kindred spirits. The first time I met Lily, an INFP, I felt like I had known her forever. We were introduced through a mutual friend at a gathering, and it didn't take long before we found ourselves in an intense conversation about life, purpose, and the deeper meaning behind everything. There was something so easy about being around her, something so familiar, even though we had just met. It felt like I could be myself, completely open and vulnerable, without fear of judgment. Lily's warmth and gentle nature immediately put me at ease. As an INFJ, I can be guarded when meeting new people, especially when I sense that they might not understand the complexities of my thoughts and emotions. But with Lily, there was an immediate resonance. She shared the same idealism, the same sense of purpose, and the same deep emotional awareness that I so often craved in relationships. She didn't just see the surface of things. She too was driven by a desire to understand the world on a deeper level. Our connection felt effortless, as if we were two pieces of the same puzzle. We could talk for hours about the world's problems, the human condition, and the struggles of living with such a strong desire for meaning. It wasn't just that we agreed on everything, it was that we each had a deep understanding of the other's emotional world. In a way, we were like two mirrors reflecting each other's inner landscape. Emotional depth, the beauty of shared sensitivity. One of the most striking aspects of the INFJ-INFP dynamic is the emotional depth both types bring to the relationship. INFJs are known for their ability to empathize with others and feel deeply, and INFPs are equally attuned to the emotional world, often feeling deeply connected to their inner values and the struggles of others. This shared sensitivity allows the two to form a bond that feels deeply intimate and authentic. Lily and I spent countless hours talking about everything from our childhoods to our deepest fears. There was an unspoken understanding between us that allowed us to share things we had never shared with anyone else. She would open up about her struggles with feeling misunderstood, something I could relate to, and I would listen intently, offering my own reflections. The conversations weren't just about exchanging words. They were about sharing pieces of our souls. This emotional connection didn't just stay in our conversations. It translated into our actions as well. When Lily was struggling with a tough decision, I could sense her turmoil without her needing to say anything. It was like I could feel her emotions as if they were my own, and I knew exactly how to offer support, whether it was through quiet presence or thoughtful words of encouragement. Likewise, when I faced my own challenges, Lily was always there, offering her unwavering support and understanding. In many ways, it felt like we were each other's safe space. We didn't need to explain everything. We could simply be, and that was enough. Our connection was grounded in a deep emotional understanding that went beyond words, a connection that felt both rare and precious, shared ideals, a bond of vision and purpose. Another key aspect of the INFJ-INFP relationship is the shared commitment to ideals and purpose. Both types are driven by a desire to make the world a better place and to align their actions with their deepest values. This shared sense of mission creates a powerful bond between the two, as they both navigate life with a deep-seated desire to contribute meaningfully to the world. Lily and I often talked about the ways we wanted to change the world, whether it was through art, activism, or simply by living authentically and inspiring others to do the same. We both felt the weight of the world's problems and the responsibility to make a difference even in small ways. This shared passion for purpose created a sense of alignment between us that strengthened our bond. At times, we would dream together about the future, imagining the impact we could have if we combined our talents and efforts. We talked about how we could work together to create something meaningful, something that would leave a lasting legacy. Our conversations were full of excitement and possibility, fueled by our shared ideals and the belief that we could make a difference. This shared vision was something that brought us even closer. It wasn't just that we supported each other's dreams, it was that we shared those dreams. We both wanted to live lives that felt aligned with our core values, and we encouraged each other to stay true to that vision, even when it seemed difficult or uncertain. Challenges: the risk of emotional overload and idealization. While the INFJ-INFP dynamic is filled with warmth and connection, it's not without its challenges. One of the potential pitfalls of this pairing is the tendency for both partners to become emotionally overwhelmed. Both INFJs and INFPs feel deeply, and this can sometimes lead to emotional burnout if neither partner is able to set healthy boundaries or process their feelings in a balanced way. There were times when Lily and I found ourselves lost in our own emotions, each of us feeling the weight of the world and the struggles we faced. Our shared idealism could sometimes lead to frustration when the world didn't seem to live up to the vision we had for it. We would get caught up in our own emotional spirals, and it could feel like we were both drowning in the intensity of our feelings. In these moments, we had to learn how to support each other without feeding into each other's emotional overwhelm. It was important for us to recognize when we needed space to process our emotions individually, rather than getting lost in the emotional intensity together. This was a challenge, as both of us wanted to be there for the other, But we had to learn that sometimes taking a step back was the healthiest way to maintain balance. Another challenge was the potential for idealization. Because both INFJs and INFPs have a tendency to place others on a pedestal, there was a risk that we could become too idealized in each other's eyes. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of what the relationship should be, rather than accepting each other's flaws and imperfections. We had to remind ourselves that, while we shared a deep emotional connection, we were still two individuals with different needs, struggles, and perspectives. Growth. Nurturing each other's authenticity. The beauty of the INFJ-INFP relationship lies in its ability to help both partners grow in their emotional and personal development. As an INFJ, I sometimes struggle with self-doubt and the pressure to live up to my ideals. Lily's support helped me embrace my authenticity, reminding me that it was okay to be imperfect and to not have all the answers. She encouraged me to let go of the need for constant perfection and to trust that I was enough just as I was. In turn, I helped Lily find ways to channel her idealism into practical action. While I admired her deep emotional connection to the world, I also saw that she sometimes struggled with translating her visions into concrete steps. I helped her break down her dreams into achievable goals, encouraging her to take action and not just stay in the realm of thought and emotion. Our relationship was a mirror in which we could both see ourselves more clearly, and through our connection, we grew stronger and more confident in our authenticity. We learned that being true to ourselves wasn't about living up to an idealized version of who we should be. It was about accepting who we were, with all of our imperfections and complexities. Conclusion: a relationship of depth, connection, and mutual growth. The INFJ-INFP dynamic is a deeply emotional and transformative one. It's a relationship grounded in shared ideals, emotional depth, and a mutual desire for authenticity and purpose. These two types understand each other in ways that few others can, and their connection feels like a meeting of kindred spirits. While there are challenges, particularly around emotional overwhelm and idealization, the beauty of this pairing lies in its ability to help both partners grow into their truest selves. By supporting each other's authenticity and vision, INFJs and INFPs can create a bond that feels profound, meaningful, and enduring. In the end, the INFJ-INFP relationship is a reminder that true connection comes when two people are willing to be vulnerable, to share their deepest dreams, and to support each other in their personal growth. It's a relationship that nourishes the soul, offering a space for both partners to be their most authentic selves. Together. Section 16. The INFJ-INTJ dynamic, a union of minds and shared vision. There's something undeniably magnetic about the INFJ-INTJ dynamic, a meeting of two deeply introspective, forward-thinking individuals who, while often seen as intellectual and emotionally complex, can build a connection that feels both mentally stimulating and spiritually fulfilling. INFJs and INTJs share a visionary perspective on life, a drive for deep understanding, and a thirst for knowledge and personal growth. However, despite these similarities, their approaches to life and relationships differ in subtle yet significant ways, making this pairing both incredibly rewarding and occasionally challenging. In this section, we'll delve into the INFJ-INTJ dynamic, exploring how these two personality types can balance their intellectual bond with their emotional needs, how their shared vision for the future can draw them closer, and how their differences can either enhance their relationship or cause friction. The first encounter: intellectual sparks and mutual curiosity. The first time I met Alex, an INTJ, I was struck by his quiet confidence. He wasn't the type to speak without purpose, and he definitely didn't waste time on small talk. As an INFJ, I was used to connecting with people on an emotional level, but Alex intrigued me in a way that was different. It wasn't just that we shared an appreciation for deep thought. It was that our conversations seemed to flow effortlessly, even though they rarely touched on surface-level topics. There was an instant recognition of each other's intelligence and curiosity, a shared sense of wanting to explore the world, not just at a surface level, but from a place of deep understanding. Our first conversation revolved around philosophy and the nature of human existence, a topic that quickly revealed the depth of our intellectual connection. I had grown accustomed to being one of the few people who could engage in such discussions, but with Alex, it felt like I had found an equal. He wasn't just absorbing what I said, he was challenging my ideas, expanding them, and offering new perspectives that I hadn't considered. There was something about his sharp, analytical mind that complemented my own introspective and idealistic nature. Despite our initial connection being rooted in intellectual discussions, I quickly realized there was more to Alex than just his mind. Beneath the cool, logical exterior was someone who, like me, was deeply driven by a sense of purpose. Alex's vision for the future was aligned with my own. He was focused on finding ways to improve the world, not through emotional idealism, but through strategy and innovation. It was a vision that captivated me, even if our paths to achieving it were different. Shared vision, a powerful foundation for connection. One of the most compelling aspects of the INFJ-INTJ relationship is the shared vision both types have for the future. Both INFJs and INTJs are driven by a desire to make a difference in the world. But while INFJs focus on emotional connection, empathy, and values, INTJs focus on strategy, structure, and efficiency. Despite their differences, they are both forward-thinking individuals who aren't content with the status quo. They want to create something better, something meaningful. Alex and I found common ground in our shared vision for the future, particularly when it came to our mutual desire for personal growth and societal improvement. We both recognized that the world had a long way to go, and we wanted to contribute to its progress, albeit in different ways. For me, this meant nurturing relationships and creating spaces where others could grow emotionally and spiritually. For Alex, it was about solving complex problems and implementing systems that could affect lasting change. Our shared commitment to growth and improvement was a central point of connection between us. We often discussed our dreams, not just in terms of career ambitions, but also in terms of the legacy we hope to leave behind. These conversations were full of excitement and possibility, and while our approaches to achieving those goals were distinct, we respected and supported each other's vision. What fascinated me most about Alex was his ability to cut through the noise and focus on the long-term picture. As an INFJ, I was often caught up in the emotional nuances of the present, trying to understand people and their struggles. Alex, however, always seemed to be 2 steps ahead, thinking in terms of systems and structures. His ability to see the bigger picture, to devise strategies for achieving our goals, complemented my emotional understanding and deep insight into human nature. Together, we were an intellectually powerful team, and our shared vision allowed us to bond on a level that went beyond surface-level attraction. The challenges. The INFJ's emotional sensitivity meets the INTJ's pragmatism. While the intellectual connection between an INFJ and an INTJ can be strong, the differences between these 2 types are not to be underestimated. One of the most significant challenges in this dynamic lies in the way that each type approaches emotions. INFJs are deeply in tune with their own emotions and the emotions of others, while INTJs, although they value personal growth and understanding, often struggle to process and express emotions in the same way. In our relationship, I found that Alex's approach to emotions was often very pragmatic. He had a tendency to compartmentalize his feelings, focusing more on solutions and outcomes than on emotional processing. This didn't mean that Alex didn't care. It simply meant that he valued efficiency and logic above emotional expression. As an INFJ, I often felt that my emotional needs were unmet in this dynamic, especially when I needed reassurance or a deeper connection on an emotional level. There were times when I would open up about my feelings, sharing my emotional vulnerabilities, only to be met with a logical, solution-based response. While I understood that Alex was trying to help, it often felt like my emotional experience was being minimized or dismissed. I wanted him to feel with me, to sit with my emotions rather than immediately offer a fix. But Alex's default mode was to find a way to solve the problem, even when the problem wasn't something that needed fixing. It was something that needed understanding. For Alex, the challenge was realizing that sometimes emotional depth and understanding weren't about finding a solution. They were about being present and empathetic. Over time, I learned to communicate my emotional needs more clearly, and Alex learned to offer his support in ways that went beyond offering solutions. It was a slow process, but it was a necessary one for our relationship to flourish. Balancing the intellect and the heart. Emotional growth through understanding. The INFJ-INTJ relationship is one of mutual growth. While both types are incredibly intelligent and driven, it is the balance of intellect and emotion that can truly make this dynamic work. As an INFJ, I had to learn to step back and allow Alex to lead with his pragmatic, strategic mindset. His ability to think critically and logically was something I admired, and I realized that I didn't always need to have all the answers. Sometimes I simply needed to trust in his judgment and allow him to take the lead. At the same time, Alex had to learn that not everything could be solved with logic. Emotions needed to be acknowledged and processed, even if they didn't have a clear solution. He had to understand that, for me, emotional validation was just as important as intellectual validation. Through this, we both grew in our ability to meet each other's needs. What made our relationship so strong was the way we complemented each other. I brought emotional depth and a sense of connection to our bond, while Alex brought structure, clarity, and long-term vision. Together, we created a partnership that was both intellectually stimulating and emotionally fulfilling. The power of support, encouraging each other's growth. The beauty of the INFJ-INTJ dynamic lies in the way both partners encourage each other's growth. INFJs are natural nurturers, and we thrive in environments where we can support the people we care about. Alex, while independent and self-sufficient, valued the emotional insight I provided. He trusted my judgment and often sought my perspective when faced with difficult decisions, especially when it came to understanding people and their motivations. For my part, I admired Alex's ability to push through obstacles and stay focused on his goals. He helped me become more decisive, less bogged down by overthinking, and more willing to take action toward achieving my dreams. Together, we created a space where we could both grow into the best versions of ourselves. Conclusion: a dynamic of intellectual and emotional growth. The INFJ-INTJ dynamic is a relationship that thrives on intellectual stimulation, shared vision, and mutual respect for each other's strengths. While the differences between the two types can lead to challenges, particularly around emotional expression, the intellectual connection and shared drive for personal growth create a strong foundation for the relationship. This pairing offers both partners the opportunity to grow intellectually, emotionally, and personally. INFJs learn to embrace strategy and pragmatic thinking, while INTJs learn to honor the emotional depth that comes with connecting with others. Together, INFJs and INTJs create a relationship that is intellectually enriching, emotionally fulfilling, and ultimately transformative. Section 17. The INFJ-ENFJ dynamic, a relationship built on empathy, support, and shared vision. When two individuals with deep emotional intelligence and a shared desire to make a difference come together, something truly magical happens. The INFJ-ENFJ relationship is a powerful one, rooted in empathy, mutual support, and a shared vision for personal and collective growth. These two types have much in common, particularly their focus on people, emotional connection, and ideals. However, their differences, particularly in how they express their energy and engage with the world, add a layer of complexity to this dynamic. In this section, we'll dive deep into the INFJ-ENFJ dynamic, examining the emotional depth, challenges, and transformative potential of this pairing. Through personal anecdotes and insights, we'll explore how INFJs and ENFJs connect on a profound level and navigate their relationship to build something meaningful and lasting. The first meeting: instant connection and mutual understanding. The first time I met Emma, an ENFJ, I felt like I had met someone who had an uncanny ability to see into my soul. It wasn't just her kindness or her natural charisma. It was the way she seemed to understand me without needing to say much. As an INFJ, I often feel misunderstood by others. So when I met Emma, I was struck by how quickly we connected. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and her genuine interest in getting to know me felt both comforting and invigorating. What fascinated me most about Emma was her natural ability to bring people together. ENFJs, with their extroverted nature, have an incredible gift for creating a sense of unity in groups. And Emma was no exception. She was the kind of person who could walk into a room and immediately make everyone feel welcome, seen, and heard. While I, as an INFJ, often prefer deeper, one-on-one interactions, I found myself drawn to Emma's energy and ability to connect people on a large scale. We quickly found ourselves talking about our shared passion for helping others, making the world a better place, and working toward our visions for the future. Despite our differences in how we engage with the world, me being more introspective and her being more extroverted, the connection between us felt seamless. It was as if we shared the same values, the same emotional depth, and the same drive to support and uplift others. We didn't need to explain ourselves. It was clear that we both understood the complexities of being idealistic, empathetic, and deeply connected to our sense of purpose. Emotional depth, the heart-to-heart connection. One of the most beautiful aspects of the INFJ-ENFJ dynamic is the emotional depth both types bring to the relationship. Both INFJs and ENFJs are incredibly empathetic, and while their approaches to relationships may differ, the emotional connection between them can be profound and life-changing. INFJs are known for their introspective nature, and ENFJs are known for their ability to understand and support the emotions of others. When these two types come together, it creates a space where both partners can express their emotional vulnerability and feel truly seen. With Emma, I felt a deep sense of emotional security. She wasn't afraid to dive into the hard conversations, to address feelings or challenges head-on. In many ways, she encouraged me to open up more than I had ever felt comfortable doing. I found myself sharing my fears, my dreams, and my past in a way that I hadn't done with anyone else. Emma's empathy and compassion made it easy for me to trust her with my heart, and I knew she would hold that trust with care and respect. At the same time, Emma appreciated the emotional depth I brought to the relationship. As an ENFJ, she was skilled at reading people and understanding their emotional needs, but she also had her own complex inner world that she often kept hidden from others. She would open up to me about her challenges, her struggles with balancing her extroverted energy with her need for introspection, and the pressure she sometimes felt to be a source of strength for everyone around her. I, too, was able to offer her the kind of emotional insight that helped her navigate her own emotions. Our relationship became a safe haven where both of us could be vulnerable and supported. There was a rare balance of emotional depth, where we both gave and received in a way that felt natural and nourishing. This mutual emotional exchange was one of the cornerstones of our relationship, and it was what kept us grounded even during challenging times. The shared vision, building something bigger together. Like many INFJs and ENFJs, Emma and I shared a powerful vision for the future. Both of us felt an intense drive to make a positive impact on the world and help others along the way. Whether it was through volunteer work, activism, or simply being present for the people in our lives, we both believed in the importance of living with purpose. What made our shared vision unique, however, was the way we complemented each other's approach to achieving our goals. As an INFJ, I often focused on the emotional and psychological aspects of helping others. I sought deep connections with individuals, striving to understand their needs, their pain, and their aspirations. I believed that by offering emotional support and understanding, I could help people grow and heal. Emma, on the other hand, had a more practical, outward-focused approach. As an ENFJ, she was skilled at organizing people, creating communities, and mobilizing efforts toward a common cause. She was a natural leader, and her ability to inspire others to take action was something I deeply admired. While I was more comfortable working behind the scenes, Emma thrived in the spotlight, using her charisma to rally people around our shared cause. Together, we created a dynamic where our complementary strengths allowed us to build something bigger than ourselves. I would help Emma with the emotional groundwork, providing insight into the needs of the people we were working with, while Emma would bring together the necessary resources and people to make our vision a reality. It wasn't always easy, especially when we had to navigate differing approaches to problem solving, but our shared dedication to our cause kept us aligned. The challenges, balancing introversion and extroversion. While the INFJ-ENFJ relationship is often deeply rewarding, it isn't without its challenges. One of the primary challenges for us was navigating the balance between introversion and extroversion. As an INFJ, I tend to recharge through solitude and reflection, while Emma, as an ENFJ, thrives on social interaction and external stimulation. There were times when Emma would want to attend a social event, gather a group of people for a cause, or engage in activities that required a lot of outward energy, and I would feel drained by the thought of it. At first, I felt guilty for needing time to myself. Emma, being the empathetic and understanding person she is, never pressured me to go beyond my comfort zone, but I couldn't help but feel like I was letting her down by needing more alone time than she did. It took some time for me to realize that our differences weren't a problem to be solved, but rather an opportunity for growth. Emma learned to respect my need for solitude, understanding that it wasn't a reflection of my feelings toward her. It was simply how I processed the world around me. On the other hand, I had to recognize that Emma's extroverted nature was just as valid as my need for introversion. Her desire to connect with others wasn't about draining her energy. It was about fulfilling her need for community and sharing her vision. By supporting her in her social endeavors, I was able to experience the world through her perspective, which ultimately deepened my own understanding of human connection. This balance wasn't always easy, but over time we found ways to honor each other's needs. Emma would encourage me to step outside of my comfort zone when it was important to do so, and I would ensure that I took the time I needed to recharge so that I could be present for her when it mattered. Growth, encouraging each other to reach our full potential. The ENFJ-ENFJ relationship is one of mutual growth, and both partners have the opportunity to help each other become their best selves. As an INFJ, I often struggled with perfectionism and self-doubt, and Emma's unwavering belief in me helped me break through those barriers. She reminded me that I didn't have to have everything figured out, that I was enough as I was. Her encouragement helped me trust in my own abilities, and I began to take more risks and embrace my own potential. For Emma, our relationship provided a space where she could explore her own vulnerability. As someone who often took on the emotional needs of others, Emma had a tendency to hide her own struggles. Through our connection, Emma learned to open up about her fears and uncertainties, and I was able to offer her the same emotional support that she had always given to others. Together, we helped each other grow into more authentic, confident versions of ourselves. Conclusion: a relationship of deep understanding and unwavering support. The INFJ-ENFJ dynamic is a beautiful balance of emotional depth, shared vision, and mutual support. While there are challenges, particularly around the balance of introversion and extroversion, this relationship offers both partners the opportunity for profound growth and connection. INFJs and ENFJs share a deep understanding of each other's emotional needs, and together they can build something meaningful and impactful. Through this relationship, both partners learn to embrace their strengths and support each other's growth. The bond they share is one that nourishes the soul, encourages personal development, and creates a space where both partners can reach their full potential. Section 18. The INFJ-INFP dynamic, a relationship built on idealism, empathy, and unspoken understanding. Well, the INFJ-INFP relationship is often seen as one of the most harmonious and profound pairings within the MBTI framework. Both types share a deep sense of idealism, a commitment to personal values, and a yearning for a deeper connection with others. The emotional depth and understanding that INFJs and INFPs bring to a relationship create a powerful bond, one that is filled with empathy, creativity, and an unspoken understanding. However, while the connection between these two types is often profound, it is not without its challenges. Their shared vision for a better world and commitment to authenticity can sometimes lead to tensions, particularly when it comes to navigating their differences in how they approach the world. In this section, we'll explore the INFJ-INFP dynamic, looking at how their shared values and emotional depth create a connection that transcends words, while also considering the unique challenges they face in their relationship. The first meeting, an instant recognition of kindred spirits. I met Lily, an INFP, at a local bookstore, the kind of place where people go not just to buy books, but to linger and get lost in the pages. We were both browsing the philosophy section when our eyes met, and there was something about the way she looked at me, something soft yet intense, that made me feel like we had known each other for years. As an INFJ, I'm used to feeling a certain kind of emotional depth in my interactions, but with Lily, it was immediate. It felt like a silent recognition, a connection that didn't need to be explained. We started talking about our favorite authors, and it didn't take long before we discovered we shared a love for the same types of stories, ones that explored the human condition, the pursuit of meaning, and the complexities of relationships. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, and there was something so comforting about being able to talk to someone who not only understood what I was saying, but seemed to resonate with it on a deep level. It wasn't just about the books or the ideas. It was about the emotional and philosophical layers that we both valued. Lily, with her easygoing and gentle demeanor, immediately struck me as someone who lived with a deep sense of authenticity. She wasn't interested in surface-level interactions or fitting into societal norms. She was someone who wore her heart on her sleeve, just like me. There was a sense of vulnerability in her that I admired, and it felt like we were two souls who had found each other in a world that often felt too superficial and disconnected. Emotional depth, a safe space for vulnerability and connection. One of the most remarkable things about the INFJ-INFP relationship is the emotional depth both partners bring to the table. As an INFJ, I've always been deeply in tune with my emotions and the emotions of others. But with Lily, there was a level of vulnerability that was unlike anything I had experienced before. INFPs have an innate ability to connect with their inner world and their values, and they bring that same depth into their relationships. With Lily, I felt like I could be completely myself. No walls, no pretenses. Our conversations often went beyond the surface. We talked about our dreams, our fears, and the ideals we held dear. We shared our struggles with finding a place in a world that often seemed to value pragmatism over authenticity, and we both expressed a longing for deeper connections with others. It was in these moments that I felt the true power of the INFJ-INFP connection, the ability to create a space where both partners could be raw, real, and unguarded. It was a relationship founded not on the need to impress or perform, but on the desire to truly understand and support each other. There was no need for grand gestures or over-the-top expressions of affection with Lily. The depth of our emotional connection was enough to sustain our bond. We didn't have to explain our feelings or justify our desires. We just knew. It wasn't always about words. It was about the shared understanding, the unspoken recognition of each other's inner world, shared ideals, building a life based on authenticity and purpose. INFJs and NFs both have a strong sense of purpose in life, and their shared ideals form a solid foundation for their relationship. We both crave meaning and want to contribute to the world in a way that aligns with our values. However, the way we go about achieving this can be different. INFJs are often more focused on creating harmony and helping others on an individual level, while INFPs tend to focus on staying true to their inner values and finding their own unique path to making a difference. With Lily, our shared idealism was one of the things that drew me to her. We often talked about our dreams for the future and the kind of world we wanted to help create, one where people could be their authentic selves, free from judgment and societal pressure. We both agreed that the world needed more empathy, more understanding, and more kindness. This vision for a better world fueled our connection, and it was something we both held dear. While our visions aligned, we sometimes found ourselves approaching them in different ways. As an INFJ, I felt more comfortable with a structured approach to helping others, often taking on a leadership role or using my intuition to guide my actions. Lily, as an INFP, was more focused on staying true to her own values and principles, even if it meant going against the grain. She was less concerned with fitting into societal expectations and more interested in creating a life that felt authentic to her, regardless of how unconventional it might seem. At times, our differing approaches created some tension. I found myself wondering if Lily's idealism could lead to frustration or disappointment when things didn't go as planned, while she sometimes felt that I was too focused on practicality and could lose sight of the bigger picture. However, these differences also provided an opportunity for growth. Lily helped me stay true to my own values, reminding me to trust my inner compass and not get lost in the desire for external validation. I, in turn, encouraged her to take practical steps toward her goals and to not be afraid to engage with the world in a way that could make a tangible impact. Challenges: managing emotional overload and idealistic expectations. While the INFJ-INFP dynamic can be incredibly fulfilling, it is not without its challenges. Both INFJs and INFPs have a tendency to carry a great deal of emotional weight, and this can sometimes lead to emotional overload in the relationship. We are both highly sensitive and deeply affected by the suffering of others, and this shared sensitivity can create moments of emotional intensity that are difficult to manage. At times, I found myself overwhelmed by the sheer emotional energy that we both brought to the relationship. There were moments when we would both spiral into our emotions, overwhelmed by the weight of the world and our inability to fix it all. It wasn't uncommon for us to spend hours talking about the injustices we saw in the world, the pain we felt for others, and our shared sense of helplessness. These conversations were cathartic, but they could also be draining, and it was sometimes hard to know how to pull ourselves out of that emotional vortex. In addition to emotional intensity, both INFJs and INFPs can struggle with idealistic expectations. We both have a tendency to envision how things should be, rather than accepting how things are. This can lead to frustration when reality doesn't align with our ideals, especially when we feel like we are unable to make the kind of change we long for. There were times when I found myself disappointed by the fact that we couldn't fix everything, or that our efforts to create a better world felt small in the grand scheme of things. However, these challenges were also an opportunity for growth. Through our relationship, I learned to embrace the beauty of the journey rather than focusing solely on the destination. Lily helped me recognize that change doesn't always happen in big, dramatic ways. It often happens in small, incremental steps. Similarly, I helped her see that while we may not be able to change the world overnight, our efforts to live authentically and help others in our own unique ways were still meaningful, pointing the beauty of acceptance, embracing each other's differences. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of the INFJ-INFP relationship is the way both partners can embrace each other's differences without judgment. We both recognize that our contrasting approaches to life are not obstacles, but opportunities to learn and grow. As an INFJ, I learned to appreciate the quiet, introspective nature of Lily's inner world. Her ability to stay true to her values, no matter the external pressures, was something I deeply admired. She, in turn, learned to embrace my practical side, recognizing that my structured approach to life didn't diminish my authenticity. It was just another way for me to live out my values. Our relationship became a space where we could truly accept each other for who we were, without trying to change or fix one another. We both understood that we were on a journey of self-discovery, and that meant allowing each other the freedom to evolve in our own ways. This sense of acceptance created a safe space where we could both be our most authentic selves, and it was this acceptance that kept our bond strong even during difficult times. Conclusion: a relationship rooted in idealism, empathy, and growth. The INFJ-INFP dynamic is one of the most emotionally fulfilling relationships an INFJ can experience. It is a connection rooted in idealism, shared values, and a deep understanding of each other's inner worlds. While there are challenges to navigate, particularly when it comes to managing emotional intensity and idealistic expectations, the relationship offers both partners the opportunity to grow, learn, and support one another in their pursuit of authenticity and purpose. Together, INFJs and INFPs create a space where vulnerability, empathy, and idealism can flourish, and where both partners can explore the depths of their emotions and their vision for a better world. This relationship is a beautiful testament to the power of connection and the transformative potential of shared ideals. Section 19, the INFJ-ESTJ dynamic, navigating control, structure, and emotional disconnect. The INFJ-ESTJ relationship is one that can be both incredibly rewarding and deeply challenging. As an INFJ, I've often found myself navigating relationships with people who are vastly different from me, but the INFJ-ESTJ dynamic stands out for its stark contrast. ESTJs are often seen as structured, logical, and decisive, and their approach to life can feel like a world away from my own idealistic, intuitive, and empathetic way of navigating the world. However, beneath the surface of our differences, there's a potential for growth, learning, and mutual respect. This section will explore the complexities of the INFJ-ESTJ relationship, touching on the initial challenges, the potential for emotional growth, and the unique ways in which these two types can complement each other if they learn to embrace their differences. The first encounter, a clash of worlds. When I first met Thomas, an ESTJ, I was immediately struck by how different he was from anyone I had ever met. He was direct, confident, and had a clear sense of what needed to be done. As an INFJ, I value introspection and emotional connection, so meeting someone like Thomas, who exuded practicality and assertiveness, was like stepping into a whole new world. His approach to life was organized, results-oriented, and grounded in logic, while my approach was more abstract, intuitive, and focused on the deeper emotional layers of life. Our initial conversations were filled with tension. I wanted to dive deep into philosophical discussions, exploring the emotional undercurrents of life, while Thomas was focused on concrete facts and solutions. He would often cut me off mid-sentence, eager to move forward with an actionable plan or practical advice. On the other hand, I found myself frustrated by his seemingly rigid focus on the how of things rather than the why. It felt like we were speaking two different languages. He was grounded in the present moment, while I was dreaming about the future and all its possibilities. Despite these differences, I couldn't help but feel drawn to him. There was something about his decisiveness that was intriguing, and I admired his ability to take charge of situations and make things happen. In my own life, I often find myself overwhelmed by the multitude of possibilities and the emotional layers of every decision, and Thomas's clarity and directness felt like a refreshing change. However, I also knew that if we were going to get along, we would need to bridge the gap between our two worlds. The tension, struggling to find common ground. As the months went by, our differences started to manifest more clearly. Thomas, as an ESTJ, thrives on structure, efficiency, and results. He's someone who knows exactly what needs to be done and isn't afraid to take charge. For him, every task has a clear plan and a defined outcome. I, on the other hand, am often more focused on the process, the emotional impact, and the deeper meaning behind actions. The disconnect between our approaches became apparent in every area of our relationship, from decision-making to problem-solving. When it came to making decisions, Thomas was quick to take control. He had a vision of how things should be done and was confident in his approach. I, however, needed time to reflect on the emotional and long-term consequences of our choices. I wanted to make sure that everyone's needs were considered, that there was harmony, and that we were staying true to our core values. This difference in approach led to conflict more than once. Thomas would become frustrated with my need for introspection and my tendency to want to analyze every possible outcome, while I felt overwhelmed by his urgency and focus on efficiency. Our disagreements often revolved around communication. Thomas was direct, blunt, and to the point, while I was more gentle, nuanced, and emotionally sensitive. I could feel my feelings being dismissed when he would speak in his typically straightforward manner. I needed time to process emotions and make sure everything was aligned emotionally before moving forward. But Thomas was all about action. This mismatch created a lot of tension, and it often felt like we were speaking past each other rather than truly hearing one another. Emotional disconnect, navigating the lack of empathy. So one of the most difficult aspects of the INFJ-ESTJ dynamic is the emotional disconnect that can arise between the two types. As an INFJ, my emotional world is rich, complex, and all-encompassing. I deeply empathize with others, often to the point of absorbing their emotions, and I seek to understand the emotional undertones of every situation. For me, emotional connection is key to any relationship. However, Thomas, as an ESTJ, doesn't naturally operate from the same emotional framework. He values efficiency, logic, and tangible results more than emotional resonance. As a result, I often felt like my emotional needs were being ignored, or even worse, dismissed as irrelevant. For example, when I would share my feelings of overwhelm or anxiety about a particular situation, Thomas would respond by offering practical solutions or telling me to just get over it and focus on what needed to be done. While his approach came from a place of wanting to help, it often left me feeling unheard and unsupported. I didn't need a solution in those moments. I needed validation and empathy. But Thomas's pragmatic mindset couldn't always recognize that. For him, emotions were something to be dealt with quickly and efficiently, rather than something to be fully explored and understood. There were times when I felt as though he couldn't truly understand my emotional world. He would look at me with confusion when I would express complex feelings or engage in deep philosophical discussions about the meaning of life. He didn't see the value in sitting with discomfort or examining the emotional landscape of a situation. For me, that's where growth happens. But for Thomas, the focus was always on moving forward, getting things done, and finding solutions as quickly as possible. Growth and understanding. Finding ways to support each other. Despite these challenges, there was also potential for growth. As our relationship progressed, I started to recognize that Thomas's focus on structure and practicality was not a flaw. It was simply a different way of approaching the world. I began to see how his decisiveness and confidence could help me stay grounded when I got lost in my thoughts or overwhelmed by emotions. His ability to take charge and make decisions was something I admired. And over time, I realized that I didn't always have to have all the answers or the perfect emotional solution to a problem. Sometimes it was enough to take action and trust that things would work out. On the flip side, Thomas started to recognize the importance of emotional connection and introspection. He began to understand that I didn't need him to fix everything. I just needed him to listen and offer support. He learned that by acknowledging my feelings, he could provide the reassurance I needed, even if he didn't always understand the complexities of my emotions. Slowly, he began to appreciate the depth of my emotional world and the value of empathy in our relationship. He learned to ask more questions, to take a step back, and to recognize that sometimes the answers weren't as simple as, just do it. The key to navigating the INFJ-ESTJ relationship was finding a balance between our differences. I needed to allow room for Thomas's practical approach and not take it personally when he didn't understand my emotional needs right away. He needed to embrace the emotional complexity I brought to the relationship and recognize that my introspection was not a weakness, but a source of strength. As we worked through our challenges, we learned to respect each other's perspectives and find ways to complement each other rather than compete. The power of respect and compromise. In any relationship, but especially in an INFJ-ESTJ dynamic, respect and compromise are essential. Over time, Thomas and I learned that the key to making our differences work was not trying to change each other, but rather to respect and embrace the unique qualities we each brought to the table. I learned that it was okay to be more spontaneous and go with the flow sometimes, even if it wasn't my natural tendency. Thomas, on the other hand, learned to slow down and engage with the emotional side of things a little more, even if it felt uncomfortable at times. By respecting each other's strengths and weaknesses, we found ways to create a balanced and supportive dynamic. We learned that our differences didn't have to drive a wedge between us, but could actually be the foundation of a stronger, more well-rounded relationship. Where I struggled with decisions and emotional overload, Thomas provided the clarity and structure I needed to make things happen. Where Thomas struggled to connect emotionally, I helped him understand the value of empathy and emotional awareness. Conclusion: a relationship of growth, balance, and mutual understanding. The INFJ-ESTJ relationship is not for the faint of heart. It requires patience, understanding, and a willingness to learn from each other. While there will always be moments of tension, particularly when it comes to navigating our emotional and practical differences, the relationship can be incredibly rewarding if both partners are committed to growth. For INFJs, being in a relationship with an ESTJ means learning to embrace the pragmatic side of life and finding ways to ground ourselves in the present moment. For ESTJs, being with an INFJ means recognizing the importance of emotional connection and learning to value introspection and empathy. When both partners learn to respect and support each other, the result is a dynamic that is both fulfilling and transformative. This relationship shows that despite our differences, INFJs and ESTJs have the potential to create something truly special, one that blends emotional depth, practicality, structure, and idealism into a partnership that can weather any storm. Section 20. The INFJ-INTJ relationship, a meeting of minds and shared purpose. When I think about the INFJ-INTJ dynamic, I can't help but smile. On paper, it may seem like a pairing of two strong, introspective personalities, both focused on long-term goals and big-picture visions. However, as anyone who's been in an INFJ-INTJ relationship knows, what seems like a natural match often comes with its own set of challenges. Still, when both types embrace their shared ideals, deep connection, and intellectual bond, the result is a relationship that can be truly extraordinary. This section will explore the fascinating complexities of the INFJ-INTJ relationship, highlighting the deep mental connection, the moments of growth, and the way both types can help each other develop and evolve emotionally. The first encounter: intellectual sparks and mutual recognition. I still remember the first time I met Alex, an INTJ. At first, I wasn't sure what to make of him. His calm demeanor and direct way of speaking left a strong impression, but it wasn't until we started talking that I began to see how similar we were. There was an instant recognition between us, like two puzzle pieces that fit together perfectly, but only once the pieces are carefully aligned. As we discussed books, philosophies, and our shared vision for a better future, I felt something shift inside me. It was like I had met someone who not only understood the complexities of my mind, but appreciated them. As an INFJ, I thrive in environments where deep thought and shared ideals can flourish, and Alex, as an INTJ, was no stranger to this. He was strategic, organized, and had a clear sense of his life's purpose. We quickly found that we both had a natural affinity for exploring abstract concepts, discussing how systems work, and diving into the deeper meanings behind everything from politics to relationships. Our conversations were often long and winding, filled with intellectual debates and moments of profound understanding. What fascinated me most was that Alex's approach to problem-solving mirrored my own, but with a sharper focus on efficiency and logical outcomes. In many ways, Alex and I were kindred spirits, both of us driven by a sense of purpose, and both of us seeking to understand the world in a way that wasn't surface level. Where I saw potential for emotional growth and understanding human behavior and relationships, Alex saw the possibility for improvement in systems and strategies. Our visions were aligned, but our methods of approaching the world were different, and that was something that intrigued me about him. The challenge: balancing emotions and rationality. As much as we connected on a mental and intellectual level, our emotional worlds couldn't have been more different. While I, as an INFJ, value deep emotional connections and a sense of belonging, Alex, as an INTJ, often struggled to understand the depth of emotional expression. He would observe emotions from a distance, trying to analyze them rationally, whereas I would dive right into them, wanting to understand and process everything on a deeper level. There were moments when I would try to express my feelings of vulnerability, and Alex would respond with solutions or logical explanations. "You just need to focus on what you can control," he would say, trying to ease my emotional turmoil. While his intentions were always good, I found that his approach lacked the depth of emotional resonance I needed in those moments. I didn't always need a solution. I just needed someone to listen, to hold space for me, and to understand what I was feeling. Alex, however, was far more comfortable navigating the intellectual side of things, and he struggled to navigate the emotional complexities I often brought to our conversations. At first, this felt isolating. I wanted to share my emotional experiences with Alex, but I found myself holding back, fearing that he wouldn't be able to understand or empathize with my perspective. On the flip side, Alex found my emotional depth to be overwhelming at times. He wasn't accustomed to diving into the intricacies of feelings, especially when it seemed like they didn't have a clear purpose or outcome. The emotional disconnect was palpable, and I struggled to reconcile my need for emotional depth with his more pragmatic approach to emotions. The growth: learning to understand and support one another. Despite these emotional differences, there was an undeniable sense of growth in our relationship. As time went on, I began to understand that Alex's approach to emotions didn't mean he didn't care. It just meant that he processed them differently. He wasn't as comfortable with emotional vulnerability as I was, and I had to learn not to take his rational responses as dismissals of my feelings. In fact, I came to realize that his way of supporting me, by offering solutions and logical perspectives, was his way of showing that he cared. It wasn't the emotional reassurance I was used to, but it was still valid in its own way. For Alex, the journey was equally transformative. He began to recognize the importance of emotions in the decision-making process and how they played a significant role in human connection. He started to understand that sometimes it was okay to sit with discomfort, to feel something without immediately trying to fix it. I helped him see that not everything in life was meant to be solved, and that some emotions didn't need a solution. They just needed acknowledgement. What was most surprising about our relationship was how much we were able to teach each other. While Alex helped me to see the importance of structure, strategy, and rationality, I showed him the value of emotional exploration and connection. Through our mutual respect and understanding, we found ways to meet in the middle. I began to approach emotional situations with more clarity and purpose, while Alex learned to give more space to feelings, even when they didn't lead to an immediate solution. The power of shared vision, strengthening the bond. One of the most powerful aspects of the INFJ-INTJ relationship is the shared vision that both types often have. Both INFJs and INTJs are driven by a strong sense of purpose and are deeply focused on their long-term goals. For INFJs, this often means creating a better world through empathy, understanding, and emotional growth. For INTJs, it involves building systems and structures that lead to tangible improvements. Despite our differences, Alex and I both wanted to contribute to the world in meaningful ways, and this shared vision became the glue that held our relationship together. We would often spend hours talking about our ideas for the future, brainstorming ways in which we could use our talents to make a positive impact. Whether it was discussing social change, exploring new technologies, or simply dreaming about the ideal world, we both felt a deep sense of purpose in these conversations. Our shared idealism and drive to make a difference allowed us to build a strong, collaborative partnership, one that was based on mutual respect, intellectual stimulation, and a deep desire to make an impact. In these moments of collaboration, I saw Alex's brilliance shine through. He had an uncanny ability to see the big picture and break down complex ideas into actionable steps. While I was more focused on the emotional and human side of our vision, Alex was able to provide the clarity and direction needed to turn those ideas into something tangible. Together, we were unstoppable. The conclusion: a relationship of intellectual growth, emotional understanding, and shared purpose. The INFJ-INTJ relationship is a unique blend of intellectual stimulation and emotional growth. While it may take time to bridge the gap between the emotional depth of the INFJ and the rationality of the INTJ, the potential for a deep, meaningful connection is undeniable. Both types are driven by a shared sense of purpose, and when they learn to embrace their differences and support each other's emotional needs, the result is a relationship that is both intellectually fulfilling and emotionally enriching. For INFJs, being with an INTJ means learning to appreciate the value of structure, strategy, and logical thinking. For INTJs, being with an INFJ means learning to navigate the emotional complexities of relationships and seeing the value of empathy and emotional depth. Together, INFJs and INTJs can create a partnership that is built on mutual growth, understanding, and a shared vision for a better world. In the end, the INFJ-INTJ relationship is one of connection, balance, and shared purpose. When both partners understand the strengths and weaknesses of each other's personalities, they can create something truly remarkable. A relationship that is grounded in intellectual connection, emotional growth, and a shared vision for the future. Section 21. The INFJ-ISFP relationship, a dance of emotion and authenticity. The INFJ-ISFP relationship is one that, at first glance, may seem like a beautiful blend of complementary energies. Yet underneath the surface, it can be far more complex. As an INFJ, I am deeply attuned to emotions, driven by a desire to connect on a profound level, and motivated by the idea of helping others. The ISFP, with their easygoing nature, creativity, and strong sense of individuality, can be both an anchor and a spark in my life. But while we share a deep emotional bond and similar values, we are still very different in how we express our emotions and navigate the world. In this section, I'll explore the unique dynamics of the INFJ-ISFP relationship, focusing on the emotional connection, the differences in how we engage with the world, and how we can grow together while respecting each other's individuality. The first encounter. A moment of serendipity. I first met Lily at an art gallery opening. She was standing in front of a painting, her eyes thoughtful, seemingly lost in the colors and shapes that filled the canvas. I couldn't help but notice the depth of her gaze. There was something about her that felt familiar, yet enigmatic, like she was constantly in the process of discovering herself. As an INFJ, I'm drawn to people who aren't afraid to express their authenticity, and Lily's free-spirited energy and natural creativity intrigued me. We struck up a conversation about the painting, and I was immediately taken by how naturally she expressed herself. She wasn't concerned with overanalyzing the artwork in an intellectual way. Instead, she simply allowed her emotions to guide her interpretation. It was refreshing. As someone who often tends to analyze and ponder, I found her ability to be present in the moment both inspiring and grounding. In our conversation, it became clear that while we might have different approaches to the world, there was a deep sense of understanding between us. Lily's openness to exploring life's beauty, her quiet strength, and her authenticity were qualities that I admired immediately. Despite our differences in how we interact with the world, it felt like we were on the same wavelength emotionally, connected by a shared appreciation for art, beauty, and the deeper meaning behind things. The challenge: emotional expression and sensitivity. As our friendship deepened, so did our differences. One of the first challenges I noticed in our dynamic was the way we approached emotional expression. I, as an INFJ, tend to express my feelings with depth and complexity. I think about emotions from every angle, trying to understand the nuances and what they mean on a bigger scale. Lily, on the other hand, is far more in tune with her emotions in the moment. She feels things deeply, but often expresses them through action or creative outlets, rather than through words or introspection. For me, emotions are a place of reflection, a space to explore the meaning behind them, to understand how they fit into the bigger picture. I enjoy discussing my feelings, understanding their origins, and connecting them to broader themes in life. But Lily tends to internalize and then express her emotions in more spontaneous, tactile ways, whether through her art, a quiet moment of reflection, or simply letting her feelings flow through her actions. At first, I didn't quite understand this difference. There were moments when I wanted to have deep, introspective conversations with Lily, seeking to connect on a level that felt meaningful to me. But she didn't always share my desire for that kind of verbal processing. For Lily, the idea of dissecting emotions through language didn't always make sense. She preferred to express herself through more subtle, nonverbal ways: her art, her gestures, and her quiet, thoughtful actions. This difference sometimes led to misunderstandings. I would wonder if Lily was shutting me out when she didn't want to talk about her feelings, and she would feel overwhelmed when I tried to push her into a deep conversation about something she wasn't ready to explore. It was as if we were speaking different emotional languages, mine being verbal and introspective, hers being more expressive through action and art. The growth: learning to honor each other's emotional expression. Despite the initial misunderstandings, one of the most beautiful aspects of the INFJ-ISFP relationship is the opportunity for growth and mutual learning. Over time, I began to appreciate the way Lily expressed her emotions through her art and her presence. She didn't need to articulate every feeling. Her actions, her creations, and her energy spoke volumes. I learned that for Lily, creating art wasn't just a hobby. It was her way of processing the world and expressing the depths of her emotions in ways that words often couldn't capture. For her part, Lily began to understand that for me, emotional connection meant exploring and understanding my feelings through communication. She learned to offer me space to talk about what was on my mind, and I learned to approach her emotions with patience and openness, respecting her need to process things in her own way. We found ways to meet each other halfway, allowing for space for my introspection while respecting her need for a quieter, more personal expression of emotion. One of the things that Lily taught me was the importance of being present with emotions, rather than overanalyzing them. While I would often spiral into overthinking, Lily would remind me to just feel it and let the emotion exist without the need to constantly understand it. Through her, I learned to appreciate the beauty of feeling without the pressure of always needing to make sense of it. She helped me embrace the flow of emotions, to surrender to them without needing to control or dissect every detail. In turn, I taught Lily the value of reflection and understanding the deeper meaning behind her feelings. I encouraged her to sit with her emotions for a while, to explore what they might be telling her about her life and her purpose. Through our relationship, we both learn that emotions, when expressed and processed authentically, can be a bridge to greater self-awareness and connection. The strengths, a relationship rooted in authenticity and shared values. Despite the challenges in how we express ourselves emotionally, the INFJ-ISFP relationship thrives on a foundation of shared values. Both types place high importance on authenticity, personal growth, and emotional depth. For me, the INFJ, it's about connecting with others on a meaningful level, creating a sense of community, and helping others realize their potential. For Lily, the ISFP, it's about living true to herself, embracing her individuality, and experiencing the beauty of life through creativity and art. Where we shine as a pair is in our mutual respect for each other's authenticity. Lily's ability to stay true to herself in every moment inspires me to do the same, and my desire to create meaningful connections with others encourages her to express herself more openly. We both value integrity and personal growth, and this shared value forms the bedrock of our relationship. We support each other's journeys, whether it's me offering guidance on introspection or Lily inspiring me to embrace creativity and spontaneous joy. There is also a sense of emotional safety in this relationship. Lily and I may not always communicate our feelings in the same way, but we both create a space where the other can simply be. There's no pressure to perform, no need to live up to external expectations. Our bond is rooted in a deep sense of trust, and even when we struggle to express ourselves in the moment, we know that we're always there for each other, no matter what. The conclusion: celebrating the beauty of differences. The INFJ-ISFP relationship is a dance of emotional expression and mutual respect. While we may not always communicate our emotions in the same way, our deep connection and shared values provide a solid foundation for growth. As an INFJ, I've learned the importance of embracing life's spontaneous beauty, and as an ISFP, Lily has learned the value of introspection and emotional understanding. Our relationship is a beautiful reminder that emotional depth doesn't always need to be expressed through words. Sometimes it's about the quiet understanding we share, the support we offer without asking, and the way we meet each other where we are. Together, we've learned to navigate our differences, honoring each other's emotional expressions while deepening our connection. The INFJ-ISFP relationship, like any meaningful bond, requires patience, understanding, and a willingness to grow together. But when two people are committed to being authentic, supporting each other's journeys, and sharing in the beauty of life, the result is a relationship that is both powerful and transformative. Section 22. The INFJ-INFP relationship, a deep connection through shared idealism and emotional depth. The INFJ-INFP dynamic is one of the most profound and soul-stirring relationships an INFJ can experience. There's something uniquely magical about the connection between these two types, both being idealistic, deeply empathetic, and driven by a desire to create a meaningful life. As an INFJ, I've found that my bond with INFPs tends to run deeper than most, largely because of our shared values, emotional depth, and strong internal compass. However, while we are drawn to each other by our shared idealism, our differences in how we approach the world can lead to moments of tension and confusion. In this section, I'll explore the nuances of the INFJ-INFP relationship, diving into the strengths of this connection, the challenges we face, and how we can learn from each other to create a stronger, more harmonious partnership. The first encounter, a meeting of souls. I met Olivia at a community event centered around personal growth and self-discovery. As soon as I started talking to her, I could sense that there was something deeply unique about her energy. There was a warmth in her words, and she spoke with such openness, as though she was letting me peer into her soul without hesitation. As an INFJ, I value deep, authentic connections, and Olivia's presence immediately felt like a reflection of my own desire for emotional honesty and meaningful engagement. Our conversation was easy, flowing naturally from one topic to the next, from discussing books we love to sharing our dreams and visions for the future. It felt like we had known each other for years. Both of us were focused on creating a better world, one based on kindness, empathy, and understanding. Olivia shared how she longed for peace and balance in the world, a desire that resonated deeply with me as I expressed my own similar yearnings for societal change and emotional connection. It was clear from the start that Olivia was an INFP, idealistic, creative, and deeply committed to her values. I was drawn to her emotional depth and the way she processed the world through her intuition and inner sense of what was right. As an INFJ, I could easily relate to her internal world, as it mirrored my own in many ways, but I quickly realized that we also had some subtle differences in how we expressed our dreams and beliefs. The challenge: navigating our different approaches to the world. One of the most interesting challenges I've faced in the INFJ-INFP relationship has been the difference in how we navigate the world. While both of us share a deep sense of idealism and a desire to make a positive impact, the way we go about it can sometimes create friction. As an INFJ, I tend to be more structured in my approach to achieving my goals. I like to create a plan, establish steps to reach those goals, and focus on the long-term vision. I'm often thinking about how to bring people together, and I rely on my strong sense of intuition to guide me toward practical solutions that can lead to real-world change. I value efficiency and structure in the pursuit of my dreams. Olivia, on the other hand, is more fluid in her approach. She's a deeply creative person, and while she shares the same values and desires for change, she often struggles with rigid plans and systems. Her idealism is less about creating structured solutions and more about finding ways to inspire and connect people on a deeper level. Olivia's focus is often on the emotional and philosophical side of things. She wants to inspire people's hearts and minds and allow them to find their own paths to growth. While this difference doesn't invalidate either approach, it has sometimes created tension between us. I find myself wanting to get things done, and sometimes I struggle to understand Olivia's more spontaneous, open-ended approach to life. She, in turn, feels constrained by my more pragmatic methods, finding them too rigid and limiting. The growth, embracing each other's strengths. Despite the tension caused by our differing approaches, the INFJ-INFP relationship is also one of growth and mutual learning. Olivia and I have learned to appreciate the value of each other's methods, even when they don't come naturally to us. For Olivia, being with me has meant learning to embrace some degree of structure and forward planning. While she may still resist overly structured approaches, she has come to understand that having a clear plan can be helpful in manifesting her dreams and making a tangible impact. I've also helped her realize that setting intentions and taking actionable steps is not the same as losing creativity. It's about giving your creativity a clear direction. For me, being with Olivia has been a lesson in letting go of the need for control and allowing things to unfold in their own time. I've learned that my desire for structure can sometimes make me overly rigid, and I've come to see the value of living in the moment, trusting that things will fall into place as long as the right intentions are set. Olivia's more relaxed, open-ended approach has helped me to embrace uncertainty, to flow with life's rhythm instead of trying to predict or control every outcome. This balance between structure and flow has created a stronger bond between us, one that allows us to both stay true to our values while also learning to support each other's ways of being. Where I might have once been frustrated by Olivia's lack of structure, I now see her openness to possibility as a beautiful reminder that not everything in life needs to be meticulously planned. The strengths: a relationship grounded in shared ideals. At the core of the INFJ-INFP relationship is a profound sense of shared values and vision. Both of us are deeply committed to making the world a better place. Although our methods may differ, we both care deeply about the well-being of others and have an innate understanding of the emotional and psychological complexities of the human experience. This mutual desire for healing and transformation creates an unspoken bond that fuels our relationship. What makes this relationship so beautiful is that, even though we have different approaches, we are both grounded in the same core beliefs. We believe in love, empathy, and the importance of authentic connection. Our shared vision is a world that values emotional intelligence, compassion, and understanding. One where people are free to express themselves and grow into the best versions of themselves. This shared sense of purpose has given our relationship a sense of direction and meaning, even during the more challenging moments. We also have an extraordinary emotional connection. Both INFJs and INFPs experience emotions intensely, and this allows us to connect on a deeper level. When I am struggling, Olivia is there with a comforting word, her gentle nature always offering understanding without judgment. When Olivia faces emotional turmoil, I am able to offer her the support and insight she needs to process her feelings. We've both learned that, even in our differences, we complement each other emotionally in ways that make our bond even stronger. The conclusion: creating a life of meaning together. The INFJ-INFP relationship is a testament to the power of shared values, deep emotional connection, and mutual respect for each other's individuality. While our differing approaches to life may lead to challenges, they also offer opportunities for growth and transformation. As an INFJ, I've learned to embrace the fluidity and creativity that Olivia brings to our relationship, while Olivia has learned to appreciate the benefits of having structure and clarity in her journey. Together, we create a life grounded in meaning, love, and purpose. Our shared vision of a better world is our guiding light, and our emotional connection is the foundation that keeps us grounded. The INFJ-INFP dynamic is one of constant learning, where we support and challenge each other to be our best selves, both individually and as a couple. When two souls as deeply connected as INFJs and NFPs come together, the result is a relationship that is full of meaning, growth, and above all, love. Section 23. The INFJ-ENFJ relationship, a dynamic of empathy, leadership, and mutual growth. The INFJ-ENFJ relationship is often one that feels like a perfect partnership in terms of shared values, emotional depth, and intellectual connection. As an INFJ, I am deeply motivated by my inner vision for a better world, and the ENFJ, with their strong leadership abilities, empathy, and deep concern for others, complements me in a way that creates a powerful dynamic. We share similar ideals, emotional intelligence, and a passion for helping people. However, while we align in many ways, our relationship is not without its challenges. As two emotionally attuned idealistic types, we can sometimes clash when it comes to the ways we handle emotions, leadership, and our approach to conflict. In this section, I'll explore the complexities of the INFJ-ENFJ relationship, delving into the strengths of our connection, the challenges we face, and how we can navigate our differences to build a stronger, more harmonious partnership. The first encounter. A shared vision for the future. I met Marcus at a social justice seminar. There was an immediate energy between us, a sense that we were both deeply driven by the same ideals, though we were coming at them from slightly different angles. Marcus exuded warmth and confidence, a natural leader who could effortlessly guide a room with his presence. He spoke with passion about the causes that mattered most to him: community building, human rights, and creating spaces where people could feel seen and heard. His vision for the future aligned perfectly with mine, and it was evident that we both shared a deep commitment to improving the world. We spent hours talking about our personal philosophies, discussing our experiences in the nonprofit sector, and exchanging thoughts on how to create positive change. I was struck by how naturally he stepped into a leadership role, guiding conversations and creating an environment where others felt comfortable sharing their thoughts. It was clear that Marcus had a natural gift for bringing people together and motivating them to take action, and I admired that deeply. At the same time, I recognized that our emotional connection went beyond just the work we were doing. As an INFJ, I tend to connect with people on a deep, intuitive level, and Marcus seemed to tap into that in a way that felt effortless. He was genuinely interested in understanding my inner world, listening to my thoughts, and sharing his own. We connected emotionally almost immediately, and I knew that there was a strong bond between us. A bond built not only on shared goals, but also on a deep sense of empathy and mutual understanding. The challenge: navigating our different approaches to leadership. One of the first challenges I faced in my relationship with Marcus was our differing approaches to leadership. As an INFJ, I tend to take a more quiet, behind-the-scenes approach to leadership. I prefer to inspire others with my vision and to lead by example, often working in the background to create meaningful change. I'm not as comfortable in the spotlight, and I can sometimes shy away from being the central figure in a project or initiative. Marcus, as an ENFJ, is much more comfortable in the forefront, taking charge and leading from the front. He has an innate ability to inspire others, rallying people around a common cause and encouraging them to get involved. He thrives in social settings, enjoys public speaking, and is very comfortable with the spotlight. While this energy is contagious and inspiring, it can sometimes overwhelm me. I find myself stepping back, not because I don't agree with his methods, but because I can become exhausted by the intensity of his presence and the demands of being in the spotlight. This difference in our leadership styles has occasionally caused friction. I sometimes feel that Marcus's desire to take charge and direct others can be too overwhelming, and I can feel myself retreating when he takes on a more dominant role. On the other hand, Marcus has occasionally expressed frustration that I don't assert myself enough in group settings, especially when he believes I have a vision or perspective that could be valuable. He sees my quiet nature as a missed opportunity to lead, even if I'm contributing in my own way behind the scenes. The growth, understanding, and supporting each other's leadership styles. Over time, Marcus and I have learned to navigate our different leadership styles with greater understanding and appreciation. Through open communication and mutual respect, we've come to realize that our contrasting approaches don't have to be a source of conflict. Instead, they can complement each other. Marcus has come to understand that I don't need to be at the forefront in order to make a meaningful contribution. He's learned to trust that I am leading in my own way, even if it's not as visible. He respects my preference for working behind the scenes, where I can focus on the details, provide support, and create the emotional foundation for the team. While I'm not comfortable being the face of a project, I still bring my unique strengths, empathy, insight, and vision to the table. For my part, I've learned to appreciate Marcus's ability to take charge and bring people together. I've come to understand that his leadership style isn't about dominating or controlling others, but about creating a sense of shared purpose and motivating others to take action. He's helped me step out of my comfort zone and embrace moments when I need to take more of a visible leadership role, encouraging me to share my voice and vision more confidently. In many ways, our relationship has taught me that leadership is not one size fits all. There are many ways to lead, and the best leaders are those who can adapt their style to the needs of the situation and the people around them. Marcus and I have found a balance between his more extroverted front and center style and my more introverted behind-the-scenes approach. We've learned to lead together, supporting each other's strengths and creating a dynamic that is greater than the sum of its parts. The strengths, empathy, emotional depth, and shared values. The INFJ-ENFJ relationship is built on a deep emotional connection and a shared commitment to creating a better world. Both of us are highly empathetic, driven by a desire to help others, and dedicated to making meaningful, lasting change. This shared vision for a more compassionate world is the foundation of our relationship, and it gives our bond a sense of purpose that makes it feel both powerful and enduring. One of the greatest strengths of our relationship is the emotional depth we share. As an INFJ, I am naturally introspective, and I value deep, meaningful conversations that go beyond surface-level interactions. Marcus, as an ENFJ, shares this need for emotional connection, but he expresses it in a more outward-facing way. He draws people in with his warmth and his ability to make others feel seen and heard. He's always ready to offer a listening ear and provide support, and his emotional intelligence helps him understand the needs of others. Together, we form a partnership that is deeply rooted in empathy, mutual respect, and emotional understanding. Our connection goes beyond just the work we do. It's about a shared sense of purpose and a commitment to supporting each other's growth. We are constantly learning from each other, challenging each other to be more compassionate, and pushing each other to live according to our values. The conclusion: growing together as leaders and partners. The INFJ-ENFJ relationship is one that requires understanding, patience, and a willingness to learn from one another. While our differences in leadership style and approach to social engagement can present challenges, they also offer opportunities for growth and deeper connection. By embracing each other's strengths and supporting one another's unique ways of contributing, we have created a partnership that is both emotionally fulfilling and purposeful. Marcus has taught me that leadership doesn't always have to be quiet and behind the scenes. It can also be bold, visible, and inspiring. I've helped him understand that not all leadership needs to be centered on external action. Sometimes it's about nurturing the inner vision that guides everything else. Together, we are learning that leadership in any form is about inspiring others and working towards a common goal. The INFJ-ENFJ dynamic is ultimately one of mutual respect, growth, and shared purpose. As we continue to navigate our relationship, we are both growing as individuals and as partners. Our emotional connection, grounded in empathy and shared values, is the foundation that will continue to strengthen our bond. And in doing so, we are learning that the most meaningful partnerships are the ones where both people can lead and grow side by side. Section 24, the ENFJ-ESTJ relationship, balancing empathy with pragmatism. The ENFJ-ESTJ relationship is one of stark contrasts, yet when navigated with care and mutual understanding, it can also be one of profound growth and complementary strengths. As an INFJ, I'm accustomed to approaching the world through my intuition, focusing on long-term visions and valuing personal values over practicality. On the other hand, an ESTJ is a force of efficiency, grounded in the present moment, and often guided by structure, order, and logic. This difference can sometimes create tension as we approach life in fundamentally different ways, yet it can also serve as an opportunity for both parties to learn and grow. In this section, I'll delve into the dynamics of the INFJ-ESTJ relationship, focusing on how our contrasting traits both clash and complement each other, the challenges that arise from these differences, and how INFJs can navigate this relationship to build a lasting, enriching bond with a more pragmatic ESTJ. See ones, the first encounter, a clash of worlds. I first met Thomas at a work event. As an INFJ, I had come to the event prepared to observe, learn, and connect on a deeper level with the people around me. I wasn't there to lead or dominate the conversation. I was there to listen and understand. But Thomas immediately caught my attention with his commanding presence. He was the type of person who didn't hesitate to speak up, even in a room full of strangers, and his practical, no-nonsense approach to work and life was evident from the moment he walked in. He spoke with confidence, and it was clear that he was someone who valued efficiency and structure. The conversation between us started off somewhat awkwardly. I had a tendency to dive deep into abstract ideas and emotions, while Thomas was focused on practical solutions and clear outcomes. At first, I thought he might find my more intuitive approach a bit excessive, but to my surprise, he was open and even intrigued by my insights. As the conversation continued, I realized that while our approaches were different, there was a shared undercurrent of respect. I admired Thomas's ability to cut through the noise and focus on what needed to be done, while he seemed impressed by my ability to see the bigger picture and intuitively understand people's motivations and needs. There was a subtle tension between us, but also a feeling that, despite our differences, we were somehow drawn to each other. The challenge: different worldviews and approaches. The major challenge in the INFJ-ESTJ relationship arises from our vastly different worldviews and approaches to life. As an INFJ, I rely heavily on my intuition to guide my decisions. I think long-term, considering not just the immediate impact, but the deeper emotional consequences of my actions. I value personal connections, empathy, and understanding the human side of any situation. I tend to prioritize values and vision over immediate practicality, which can sometimes come across as impractical or even unrealistic in the eyes of a more pragmatic type like the ESTJ. Thomas, on the other hand, operates primarily through a lens of logic and efficiency. As an ESTJ, he values facts, figures, and concrete solutions. He's not one to indulge in abstract ideas or philosophical debates for the sake of it. For him, the most important thing is getting things done, right here, right now. His focus is on results, deadlines, and the practical application of strategies. Where I might focus on how a decision makes people feel or how it aligns with a long-term goal, Thomas focuses on what works in the present and how it can be executed efficiently. This difference in our approaches often leads to friction. I sometimes feel that Thomas's insistence on practicality and his lack of focus on the emotional impact of decisions can be too rigid. On the flip side, Thomas has told me that he sometimes finds my idealism impractical, feeling that I'm too focused on possibilities rather than on the realities of the situation. This clash between idealism and pragmatism is a recurring theme in our relationship. The growth, learning to balance practicality and vision. Despite the challenges, the INFJ-ESTJ relationship also offers opportunities for growth, particularly when we learn to appreciate and complement each other's strengths. One of the most important lessons I've learned in my relationship with Thomas is how to strike a balance between vision and practicality. As an INFJ, I've had to learn to communicate my ideas in a way that makes sense to someone who values structure and immediate results. Instead of simply focusing on the long-term emotional or ethical implications of a decision, I've learned to present my ideas with clear, actionable steps. I've learned that, while my long-term vision is important, it also needs to be grounded in the practical realities of the present. This has helped me connect with Thomas in a way that allows him to see the value of my ideas without feeling overwhelmed by their abstract nature. For Thomas, being in a relationship with an INFJ has taught him the importance of looking beyond the surface and considering the emotional impact of his decisions. He's realized that, while getting things done is essential, it's equally important to take the time to listen to people and understand their motivations and emotions. His natural inclination to jump straight into problem solving has softened, and he has become more attuned to the feelings of those around him. As an ESTJ, Thomas thrives in structured environments, but he's learned to create space for empathy and emotional consideration, especially when it comes to people he cares about. Over time, we found ways to combine our strengths. Thomas brings structure and discipline to the relationship, while I offer insight and emotional intelligence. Together, we've learned that combining the practical with the visionary creates a more harmonious, effective way of approaching both personal and professional challenges. The strengths, complementary traits, and shared values. While our approaches may differ, the INFJ-ESTJ relationship is built on a foundation of shared values. Both of us care deeply about the well-being of others, and we both have a strong sense of responsibility when it comes to our communities, our families, and our work. We may differ in how we approach these responsibilities, but our shared sense of duty and commitment to helping others gives our relationship depth and meaning. One of the greatest strengths of our relationship is the way we complement each other. My ability to read between the lines and understand people's emotions helps Thomas connect with others on a deeper level, while his ability to keep things organized and efficient helps me stay grounded and focused on achieving tangible results. While I may spend time contemplating the emotional and ethical implications of a situation, Thomas ensures that the practical aspects are handled and that things move forward. In many ways, we balance each other out. Where I might be overly idealistic or emotionally driven, Thomas brings a necessary dose of practicality and reason to our decisions. We also have a deep respect for each other's contributions. Thomas appreciates my insight into the human experience, and he often seeks my advice when it comes to navigating complex emotional dynamics at work or in personal relationships. I, in turn, admire his efficiency and the way he is able to get things done with precision and reliability. While we approach problems from different angles, we both understand that our perspectives are valuable and that we each bring something important to the table. The conclusion. Navigating the path forward. While the INFJ-ESTJ relationship is one of balancing opposing traits, empathy with pragmatism, intuition with logic, vision with results. While the differences can be challenging, they also create opportunities for growth, learning, and mutual support. As an INFJ, I've learned that sometimes vision needs to be paired with practical action to create meaningful change. I've learned to communicate my ideas more effectively, presenting them in a way that makes sense to someone who values structure and results. For Thomas, being in a relationship with an INFJ has opened his eyes to the emotional complexities of the world, helping him become more attuned to the needs of others. He has learned to soften his approach and take the time to consider the emotional impact of his decisions. When we embrace our differences and allow them to complement one another, we create a partnership that is grounded in both vision and reality. The INFJ-ESTJ dynamic is one of constant learning, both of us pushing each other to grow, challenge our assumptions, and find new ways to approach the world. It's a relationship that requires patience, understanding, and a willingness to see the value in what the other brings to the table. Together, we've learned that empathy and practicality can coexist. The intimate relationship is a reminder that the most effective partnerships are often those built on a foundation of complementary strengths, where differences are not just tolerated, but embraced. Conclusion: navigating the complexities of INFJ relationships. The journey through INFJ relationships, whether with narcissists, psychopaths, supportive types like ENFJs and INFPs, or even more pragmatic ESTJs, reveals an intricate web of challenges, growth, and profound connection. As an INFJ, I've come to realize that the path of relationships isn't simply about finding someone who mirrors my values and perspectives. It's about learning from the contrasts and navigating through the complexities of different personalities. Throughout this exploration, I've shared how INFJs often find themselves caught in emotional labyrinths, trying to navigate relationships with those who either don't understand their depth or exploit it for their own gain. With narcissists and psychopaths, the INFJ's natural empathy and tendency to see the potential in others often leads to manipulation and heartbreak. But these painful experiences can also teach INFJs critical lessons in self-protection, emotional boundaries, and the importance of recognizing toxic behaviors early on. It's in these difficult interactions that INFJs often learn the art of discerning who is worthy of their time, energy, and trust. On the other hand, relationships with types like ENFJs and INFPs offer a deeper sense of mutual understanding and connection. The empathy shared in these bonds is like a safety net. There is a shared vision, a sense of emotional resonance that makes these relationships feel like a natural extension of oneself. Still, even with these types, challenges can arise, such as differences in handling emotions or navigating the complexities of communication. But overall, these relationships serve as a grounding force for INFJs, providing the emotional nourishment and affirmation needed to thrive. Working with more pragmatic types like ESTJs presents a unique set of hurdles, chiefly the clash between the INFJ's idealism and the ESTJ's practicality. These types might initially feel like oil and water, but the relationship offers opportunities for growth. Learning to balance empathy with pragmatism, vision with action, is a transformative experience. It's in these relationships that INFJs learn that while vision and ideals are crucial, they must be paired with realistic plans and tangible efforts to make them a reality. Through it all, one crucial lesson stands out. INFJs must constantly protect their energy. While we are naturally empathetic and giving, it's essential that we learn to set boundaries and protect ourselves from those who may take advantage of our willingness to help. Navigating these relationships requires a balance between being open-hearted and being discerning about where to invest our emotional energy. As I reflect on my own experiences, I can say that the key to thriving in any relationship as an INFJ lies in finding those who can appreciate and understand the complexity of our emotions and our vision for the world. It's about embracing the differences, learning from them, and, most importantly, protecting the essence of who we are while allowing others to be part of our journey. By doing so, INFJs can build relationships that not only nurture their souls, but also help them grow into more resilient, self-aware individuals. In conclusion, navigating relationships as an INFJ is not about avoiding conflict or trying to find the perfect match. It's about embracing the messiness of human connection, learning from the challenges, and growing alongside others. INFJs are natural healers and visionaries, and when we approach our relationships with openness, self-awareness, and healthy boundaries, we can find deep, meaningful connections that help us grow both emotionally and intellectually.